Hello, hockey fans, and welcome to another episode of Anatomy of a Season, where we cover a given team in a given season, what all led up to it, how the roster, and even coaches and management came together, and go month by month, game by game. And this is part 2 of our look at the 1985-86 Montreal Canadiens. If you haven't seen part 1, the link is in the description, and in the upper right corner, check it out right now. But in part 1, we covered how the once great dynasty, that won 4 straight cups in a row from 1976 to 79, faltered due to changes, some of them beyond their control. But some of them are their own undoing. They were still a powerhouse the regular season quite often, but they just didn't have the right guidance to go any further. Internally, all parties, including players, coaches, management, could just never get on the same page long enough to recreate more glory. Then there was the GM, Irving Grunman, who succeeded the great Sam Pollock. He was underqualified and in way over his head in several ways, despite making some pretty good draft picks, again, and acquisitions that led to this very team coming together. But the bust of Doug Wickenheiser was something he could not overcome, as he picked the prospect over Denis Savard. To a lesser extent, also the trading of Rod Langway and Doug Jarvis to Washington is something that he took a lot of blame for, and a biggie, not a good relationship with staff members or players. He was out by 1983 as the Habs suffered 3 straight first-round playoff exits. Serge Savard, an iconic Habs defenseman and future Hall of Famer, took the reins as general manager. Well, he had no experience either, but in his career he always had a great relationship with management and coaches. So at the very least, he can somewhat fathom what the job entails. He wasted no time making excellent draft picks and good deals, as the Habs of yesteryear were slowly disappearing inevitably. They made a deep playoff run in 1984 to the conference final despite having their worst regular season in this run, with rookie goalie Steve Penney leading the way. And they rebounded the next year, winning the division, but were eliminated in the second round. And now to this season, the Habs hired a new coach, Jean Perron, who had been an assistant the year prior, mainly known for his time at the University of Moncton, and had a lot of experience on the international scale. The Habs, with 3 legends, Gainey, Robinson, and Tremblay from their Cup days, and a group mostly of young players, rookies, sophomores, and a couple superstar forwards like Mats Naslund and former Minnesota North Stars All-Star Bobby Smith, are now in tow and surging ahead. But despite a grueling start for October, for the next 3 months, the Habs were playing tremendous hockey. Naslund was having an epic year, Bobby Smith was having his best season since leaving Minnesota, and Larry Robinson in his 14th season was carving out a Hall of Fame career already, was having one of the best seasons of his career. Yeah, there were a few issues on the goaltending aspect, mainly due to consistency, but veteran Doug Soder and rookie Patrick Waugh often brought a lot to the table. Guy Carbonneau was excelling with his two-way play, and the youngsters were growing in their game, especially Swedish import and rookie Kjell Dahlen. But the Habs had a rough February and suffered a 6-game losing streak / 7-game winless streak in March, costing them first place in their division ultimately. They still finished with a winning record of 40, 33, and 7, 87 points in second place, and the media grilled Perron for being unready for the NHL. The total was down from the year prior, and they were calling for the heads of players as well, but this team just seems to be the same status quo the Habs have had dealt with all decade. A winning record? Check. Excellent special teams? Check. Offense? Good. Check. Defense? Good. Check. But lacking any real substance and not looking very playoff strong despite having a lot of experience in the vein of Gainey and Robinson. They were bitten, however, by the injury bug, especially on defense much of the year, as sophomore Chris Chelios, a year removed from being a Calder finalist, missed nearly half the season, only playing 41 games. Tom Kurz' season came to an untimely end due to some back issues, and even in net, Steve Penney battled injuries all year. When healthy, he was not very good at all. And up front, the Habs have lost Mario Tremblay for good, and Ryan Walter's scary eye injury near the end of the season cast the rest of his year in doubt as we head into the playoffs. Naslund finished the top 10 in scoring with 110 points and was a finalist for the Lady Byng Trophy. Dahlen was a finalist for the Calder, Carbonneau a finalist for the Selke, and for the first time in 5 years, Larry Robinson was a finalist for the Norris, an award he has won twice previously. But going into these playoffs, Perron was now dealing with more questions than answers. Even before Curvers got hurt, he'd been rotating defensemen such as Mike Lawler, often injured Rick Green, and minor league call-up and NHL experience, Gaston Gindra. Obviously, we know Robinson, Svoboda, and Chelios are guarantees to start in the lineup in the opening round, and so is Craig Ludwig likely, but he has performed well in the playoffs in the past. But the lower pairings are a question mark. But also a big question is, who is going to really replace Tremblay in the grand scheme of things in the playoffs? Well, they decided to go with Claude Lemieux, who in part 1 I mentioned has been taken in the second round of the 1983 draft, but hasn't earned a full spot in the main roster yet, and many felt he would never make the NHL. So in the past 3 seasons, he has played 19 games for Montreal in action, 10 of them being this season, and overall in total he has notched 2 goals, 4 assists, 6 points, not terrible, but a -7. He was deemed again unready for the NHL, and some wondered again if he'd ever even make a roster full-time other than just being a minor league call-up the rest of his career. He was called up twice this season. He didn't make much of an impact the first time, but played better second time around, showed a bit more of a spark. He was playing well, however, in Sherbrooke in the AHL. 21 goals, 32 assists, 53 points in 58 games. And it was felt by Perron he could replace Tremblay's toughness and aggression and power forward methods. And the other question is a biggie. What goaltender do they go with? Despite consistency issues, the Habs overall had good numbers amongst their goaltenders. But the most playoff experience of the three was actually Steve Penny, who had the worst year of all of them. 27 games in 2 seasons in the postseason. He did not have a good year, of course, and it is not 100% due to injuries. Patrick Roy is, of course, a rookie, so he's never played a playoff game. But he was among the top 10 in goals against average in the league this year, despite fans, media, and Montreal calling for him to be sent back to the minors when he had a bad slump. But the thing is, you can count on one hand how many rookie goalies have also won the Stanley Cup. Oddly enough, the last to do it was Habs Hall of Famer Ken Dryden during his memorable run in 1971. Then you have Doug Stoddart, who had tremendous numbers despite a rough end of the year, but he also dealt with injuries. But despite playing for the NHL for nearly a decade, he has only played in 5 playoff games and has a 1-2 record. Well, after weighing options, Perron has taken a huge risk, rolling the dice going with Patrick Roy, feeling that he has the bigger upside and is healthier among all three, which is indeed true. But again, rookie goaltenders in the playoffs, I don't know. They've had some exceptional success, such as Dryden, but the fans and media know it's not a very good probability, and many feel Roy just isn't the guy. But the decision is made, and off we go. And in the Adams Division semifinal, the opening round, for the 3rd straight season, the Montreal Canadiens will take on the Boston Bruins. Indeed, one of the oldest rivalries in the NHL is back to the forefront. Boston finished with a record of 37, 31, and 12 for 86 points, just 1 point back of the Habs. Montreal edged them out, however, in the season series with a 4-3-1 record, so this will probably go either way. But however, history is also on the side of the Montreal Canadiens, as the Bruins have not beaten them in a playoff series since 1943. And since then, Montreal has beaten Boston in 16 playoff series, including 6 Stanley Cup finals. But be that as it may, the Bruins were a good, solid team, a decent offense, and they also get out the 6th least goals in the league, a solid power play, but quite the poor penalty kill, which could be their kryptonite with Montreal's awesome power play. But head coach Butch Goring, a former NHL veteran of over 1,100 games with 4 Stanley Cup rings to show for it, was part of the Islanders dynasty and former playoff MVP, has his team playoff ready, and despite injuries, has gotten the Bruins to a good spot. Let's see who makes up this Beantown squad. First is Keith Crowder, a gritty and sometimes nasty sizable winger who can power to the net. 38 goals, 46 assists for 84 points, a career high on both goals and points, a plus 16. He led the Bruins in scoring and was key on their power play. When he wasn't serving time in the sin bin himself with over 175 penalty minutes, his 20 power play goals was 5th best in the league. He's immensely popular among the Beantown faithful to boot for his work ethic and aggression and leadership. The Bruins also have a very pesky and playoff savvy Kenny the Rat Linsman, a 5'11 agitator and frustrator. He's the guy that creates momentum for his team in the postseason. In the regular season this year, he was still very productive, 23 goals, 58 assists for 81 points in just 64 games, having missed 16. But he is ready and healthy for these playoffs. He was also a plus 15, and in 81 playoff games, he's registered 91 points. He's also appeared in 3 Stanley Cup finals with a ring to show for it back in 1984 with the Oilers. And despite injury issues, the Bruins also have one of the most gifted scorers of this era. His name was Charlie Simmer. In 55 games, he reached 36 goals, and for the time he's reached 30 plus, and added 24 assists for 60 points and was a plus 13. Still not afraid to use his size to his advantage, and still a great pure shooter as he had a 25.5 shooting percentage, was 4th best in the league and got 3 votes for the Lady Byng Trophy. He's a strong asset to the Bruins. Also on this forward core, All-Star center Barry Peterson had a solid year. Steve Kasper is still their best two-way forward, as Randy Burridge provides a solid work ethic. Jeff Courtnall reached 21 goals, a career high, while Dave Payson and Craig Nieheis also provide tremendous size up front. Also, Dwight Foster and Jay Miller round out this forward core. But a big loss is veteran and playoff experience Rick Middleton, as he's out for the season. Now the defense. Well, who else is it going to be? Raymond Bourque, yes indeed. Dangerous offensive defenseman leading a rush and frustrating forwards in his own end. Another great year, 19 goals, 58 assists for 77 points in 74 games and a plus 17. Also proving what a great leader he can be, and was immensely respected and loved by his teammates and fans all over Boston. 4th in power play goals on ice for, 10th in total goals on ice for, 10th in defensive point shares. He was just shy of being a finalist for the Norris Trophy, coming in 4th, and notched a single vote for the Hart Trophy as league MVP. He was a second-team All-Star for the 3rd time in his career, and in all 7 seasons Bork has played, he has been a team All-Star either first or second. And joining him in this rock-solid core, veteran scoring blue liner Reed Larson, who came in from a trade from Detroit this season, the grizzled vet Mike Milbury, who went to war with the Habs in the 70s, youngster and former first overall pick Gord Kluzak, also Michael Hilvin, John Blum, and Frank Simonetti. In net, the Bruins had Pat Riggin, a former Jennings winner and Vezina candidate from Washington, who they'd sacrificed All-Star and Vezina winner Pete Peters to obtain. Since coming to Boston, he had a record of 17, 11, and 8, and overall 3.41 goals against average, which was 7th best in the league, an .864 save percentage, and a shutout. Well, without any further ado, here we go. Game 1 at the Forum in Montreal, the Habs hit up Serge Boisvert in an effort to offset Walter's absence and add a little more toughness. And speaking of toughness, they had tough guy John Kordic. He gets the call to play. Claude Lemieux and Gord Kluzak get into a scuffle to rile Habs fans out. Craig Ludwig is getting his hands dirty, and Mike McPhee and Charlie Simmer almost get into it. And also, Ludwig once again and Kordic are sending the fans a clear message, and sending the Bruins a clear message that they won't be pushed around. But Patrick Waugh is playing a beauty in net, stopping everything thrown at him. But the Bruins defense is containing the Habs pretty good, and Riggin is making the saves when he has to, remains scoreless after 1. After a dirty elbow from Bruin Louis Slager, a former Nordique no less, Larry Robinson takes his fist to him and teaches him a lesson. And shortly after, on a Habs power play, Gindro controls from the point, gets to Naslund at the wing, setting it for Bobby Smith, who gets the Habs on the board, striking first 1-0. About 4.5 minutes later, on even strength, Robinson leads the rush, sending it to Naslund, going on goal with Smith! His second goal of the game, the Habs are sharp, leading 2-0. Waugh is focused out there like a lion in winter. And he says, "Not today, Ray. Gotcha, Crowder. Poo-poo to you, Peterson." And not long after, Simmer tries to scrap with Carbonneau, but then Robinson sets it up in front to McPhee. He scores 3-0 Montreal after 2. In the third period, it gets nasty. The Bruins break Waugh's shutout bid on a power play. Then with 2:01 left to play, a huge brawl erupts. The fans go nuts at the farm, and Svoboda and Riche are ejected. However, Milbury and Lindstrom of the Bruins are also thrown out. But the Habs take the chaotic first game by a final score of 3-1. A clear-cut message sent to Boston here, and a great game from Bobby Smith with 2 goals. Naslin's setup game is really on point tonight with 2 helpers. And when Robinson leading the attack, that's all too familiar to Bruins fans, sadly for them, as he has 2 apples. While Svoboda played well, Carbonneau had Peterson's number, and goaltender Patrick Waugh stopped 25 of 26 shots for his first playoff win in his first playoff game. He was superb. A good start for Les Bleus Blancs et Rouges. Game 2, we're still at the Forum, and Double Waugh suits up after not playing in the first game. Well, the Bruins are without Milbury, and they start on heralded rookie Bill Ranford in net. That includes Zucker's 10-minute misconduct as the atmosphere is tense, but it's a little more disciplined than Game 1. But Waugh still making some great saves, and the Habs defense is on point tonight. Chelios is throwing his weight around. Once again, however, it's scoreless after 1. It's a tight-knit battle, still in the second period. Both teams' defense is really shining, but just past the midway point, Scrudlin battles with the puck, gets out to Claude Lemieux, who sets up Stéphane Richer for his first career playoff goal, 1-0 Montreal. Then late in the period, on the power play, Smith, check, Naslund, check, Claude Lemieux, checkmate, his first career playoff goal. And that angers Bruin Jay Miller so much that he gets a penalty, but then John Kordic is there to greet him with a knuckle sandwich. But the Habs lead 2-0 after 2. But in the third, the Bruins are a little more aggressive, yet trying to keep their cool at the same time. And they get a goal at the 12:15 mark of the period, and then 41 seconds later get another. Waugh is very frustrated with himself, but tries to shake it off. But the fact is, the game is tied 2-2. Could we be headed to overtime? Well, it very much looks that way. But a bad cross-check by the Bruins leads to a Habs power play. Naslund looks for his guy and puts it back for Chelios, ready to make a spot, and sees Claude Lemieux, who has truly arrived on this night. And with 2:27 to play, the Habs take a 3-2 lead as the Forum goes into a frenzy, despite a late penalty. And the Bruins pulling their goalie for a 6-on-4 advantage. Montreal hangs on to win 3-2. A star-making performance and a big night for Claude Lemieux. 2 goals and assists, 3 points in on all 3 goals, including the late clutch game winner. A new star was born on this night, as he showed his savvy in high-pressure situations and excelled. And when he was announced as the game's first star, the crowd showered him, this virtual unknown almost, with a standing ovation. Naslund stays hot with 2 assists, and the Habs have a 2-0 series lead, more important than anything. In this best-of-5 series, they are 1 win away from a clean 3-game sweep. Game 3, we ship the fabled Boston Garden. Perron goes with Lawler over Jindra, feeling the latter hasn't produced. It's a tense atmosphere, as the Bruins fans do not want to see another playoff defeat at the hands of the Habs. The Bruins are putting pressure on Waugh, but it seems the stick, the pads, drop downs, and the glove and sprawling plays are in their way. Montreal can't seem to solve the Bruins' defense, however, but it's the Bruins who catch a break late in the first, as the Habs are on a power play, but they make a really bad pass, and a rare mishap on the extra man advantage that allowed Steve Casper to skate in on Waugh for a shorthanded marker, and the Bruins lead 1-0 after 1. In the second period, however, just 2:13 in, tick, Squidlin, tack, Richer, Lemieux! The youngster keeps his hot streak going, and the game is tied 1-1. Then, near the midway point of the period, the two-star forwards strike as Smith carries it in with Naslund, and Mutt scores his first goal of these playoffs. 2-1 Montreal, but nearly 5 minutes later, the Bruins tie on the power play. And 14 seconds later, take the lead again. The second straight game where Waugh has let in 2 quick goals. 3-2 Boston after 2. And despite his clear frustration with himself, Waugh shakes off the hardship and begins to shine. Third period, just 50 seconds in, those pesky puck battlers, Carbonneau gets it to Gainey, who scores his first goal of these playoffs. The game is tied. Waugh becomes a wall. Payson keeps pestering the goalie, but St. Patrick is there to greet him. Larson has a hell of a shot at bullet, but Waugh's wearing his bulletproof armor and stops him. And nearing the midway point, the Habs are killing a penalty, but a mishap by the Bruins leads Bob Gainey, taking the puck going in on Renford. He scores his second goal of the game. 3-2 Montreal. Waugh again. Ray go away. Barry is Barry. Linsman gets caught in a rat trap. And the clock counts down. 1 minute to play. The Bruins press. But the Habs keep that puck near their zone. Ranford can't get to the bench. 30 seconds. The end is near. 10 seconds left. Bye-bye. Bruins. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The Habs complete the 3-game sweep and send the Bruins packing yet again and win the game 4-3. A huge clutch performance from playoff savvy Bob Gainey. The game-tying and game-winning goal, a short-handed no less, showing that the captain still has that 70s playoff magic he had in 79 as the Conn Smythe winner. Claude Lemieux plays another beauty. And walking them huge 28 saves and remaining focused in a tight game. Either way, the key to the Habs victory is exposing the Bruins' weak penalty kill and sharp goaltending from Waugh and delivery from the top guns and a hard work and unexpected power from rookie Lemieux. Mats Naslund had a tremendous series, especially in the first 2 games. He had 1 goal, 4 assists, and 5 points total in the 3 games. It was a -2, but overall showing the skills that allowed him to have an epic season that he had. One of the biggest stories of the series, however, was Claude Lemieux, especially his amazing 3-point performance in Game 2, which is plain outstanding as Perron and Savarit's instincts about him being activated for these playoffs were paying off so far, and he has 4 points. Again, tied for second best was a +1. Also tied for second was Bobby Smith, who had an incredible first game and played well the rest of the way. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, and a -2, but working hard as ever out there. Guy Carbonneau was very much key in shutting down Peterson, but it was Brian Skrudlin who was really frustrating Barry as well as other Bruins forwards along the boards. He went toe-to-toe with Linsman several times, refusing to play Kenny Boy's game and get suckered in. Gilles Dallin was barely anywhere to be found in the series, however, while Richer actually played quite well here. Mike McPhee was solid. Double Waugh didn't make much of a dent. However, John Kordick was quickly becoming a folk hero with his tough play. Chris Nyland was also making somewhat of an impact. But how about Captain Bob? Once again showing a few can perform better in big game situations with his outstanding clutch heroics in the third and deciding game. Larry Robinson had a really good series on the defensive side of things and showing that leadership prowess, especially in Game 1, where he had 2 assists for 2 points overall and led all defensemen. Peter Svoboda, however, is the co-leader in plus-minus with a +3 in the opening round. He had a tremendous series. It was key in many defensive plays, shifting momentum. And sharing the lead, however, with him is forward Brian Skrudlin, who, as I mentioned, was a shout-out to Bruins forwards. His overall presence was definitely key in the Habs' victory. But back to the Blue Liners. Chris Chelios played pretty well. Ludwig and Green were quite solid. Jindra was decent, but the change to Lawler in the clinching Game 3 was actually a good move by Perron, as the rookie played very well in that game. And to the goaltending, the other big headline story of the series was how well Patrick Waugh played despite the rare rough moment, staying focused and coming out clutch in these tight games. His performance in the first game, and especially his performance in Game 3, really stood out. And hey, some of the saves he was making were making the highlight reels nightly on TSN, and outlets across the country were also taking notice. Waugh played every minute of the series, finishing with a 3-0 record, a goals against average of 2 on the dot, and an amazing save percentage of 923. Despite all this, however, many still had the mindset of, well, it's just Boston, the Habs beat them all the time. Well, what awaits the Montreal Canadiens in the Adams Division Final? And in the Adams Division Final, an unexpected foe, the Hartford Whalers. For the last several years, they have been a proverbial laughingstock of the NHL, albeit not near as much as the Devils or Penguins. But it's only the second time since entering the NHL from the WHA in 1979 that they made the playoffs. And that was in their first season in 1979-80, where they were swept out by the Habs. They finished the season 40-36-4, 84 points. Fourth place in the Adams Division, just 3 points behind Montreal. The 1986 playoffs were full of upsets, and the Whalers committed no different. They won their first playoff series ever to get here. They stunned the hockey world and the first-place Quebec Nordiques in a dominant 3-game series sweep. Smart hockey mind and great general manager Emile Francis has put together a formidable club, while head coach Jack Evans has motivated this team and whipped them into shape into a never-say-die bunch. Much like the Bruins, the Habs edged out the Whalers in the season series, 4-3-1. They had a great offense, scoring the 5th most goals in the league. They had a solid defense, they had a decent power play, but they had the 4th best penalty kill in the league, which could be the key to victory. But who makes up this upstart squad? Well, leading the way is the fearless captain, the man affectionately known as Ronnie Franchise, Ron Francis. He is the man that the Whalers were being built around since he was drafted in the first round in 1981. However, he did miss 27 games this year, but in the 53 he played, he had 24 goals, 53 assists, and 77 points and a +5. Tremendous playmaker with defensive capabilities, he was loved among the Whalers faithful. He did garner a vote for the Hart Trophy as well. Then another first-round pick, this one from 1983, Sylvain Turgeon. He was the leading scorer in the Whalers this year, a highly skilled winger with speed and solid size, and communicated well with centers and fellow forwards, and was able to find a goalie's weakness. 45 goals, 34 assists, 79 points, and a +1 in 76 games. His 32 even strength goals were actually tied for 6th best in the league. Well, they had the playmaker, they had the skilled winger, now they need the power. And Kevin Dineen provides a significant deal of that. While at 5'11 and nearing 200 pounds, his physicality and puck handling and scoring abilities have become an asset to the Whalers club. He too had injury issues, missing 23 games, but in the 57 he played. 33 goals, 35 assists, 68 points, and a +15. His 8 game-winning goals were tied for 4th best in the league. He also notched a vote for the Hart Trophy himself. Another big offensive leader on the team is youngster Ray Ferraro, an aggressive shooter who reached 30 goals. They had two-way winger Stu Gavin, who could score as well as check him. Dave Tippett works hard on the grind. Gavin and Tippett actually both got sulky votes. But someone both Robinson and Gainey are very familiar with, who I mentioned in part 1, Doug Jarvis, the former Habs player of 7 seasons after spending 4 in Washington after that huge Langway trade, is now a Whaler, and is still one of the best face-off men and penalty killers in the game, and his Ironman hot streak is still going strong at 882 games, also bringing 4 Stanley Cup rings with him that he won with Montreal, and 92 games of playoff experience. Also, veteran forward John Anderson was acquired from Quebec. He reached 20-plus goals for the 6th time in his career, and former Blues All-Star Wayne Babich, and rounding out the forward core, Dean Evison and Torrey Robertson. And now to the defense. A huge acquisition that the Whalers made from the Jets early in the season, Dave Babich. In the 62 games he played since joining the Whalers, he has notched 10 goals, 43 assists, 53 points. In addition to being an offensive defenseman who's a threat from the point, he's a wonder at clearing the puck at the team's crease and tremendous shot blocker. He was also the final ingredient that the Whalers needed to have a formidable defense. He was 9th in the league for total goals on ice for and notched a vote for the Norris Trophy as top defenseman. Joining him is veteran Joel Quenneville, who led the team in plus-minus. Nasty customer Olaf Samuelson is present. Tim Bothwell had a really good year, as did reliable Dane Emerson, and bringing 70 games of playoff experience and 3 cup rings, Mike McEwen. In the last line of defense, in net is a man considered to be one of the best goalies of the 1980s, and his name is Mike Liut. A pro hockey veteran of 9 seasons, 7 of them spent in the NHL. A former Pearson Trophy winner is the NHLPA choice for MVP in 1981. He was an acrobatic save maker who could often shift momentum for his team. He was acquired by the Whalers last season, and his first full season with the club, he finished with a record of 27, 23-4, tied for 7th in wins. He had a 3.61 goals against average, an .874 save percentage, 2 shutouts, and was 7th in Vezina Trophy voting. He has a major edge over Waugh with 42 games of playoff experience. Well, here we go. Game 1. The form is excited. A very well tightly played knit game on both sides to start. Waugh is making the big saves, but the Habs defense is tightly covering the Whalers' star forwards. On the other end, Mike Liut is making incredible saves. It's scoreless after 1. But then 4:24 into the second, the Whalers stun Waugh and the Habs and score one, and 2:20 later scores another. It's 2-0 Whalers. Then a John Anderson power play marker makes it 3-0 Hartford after 2. As the third period keeps going, Liut keeps stymieing Habs shooters, but a power play past the midway point, Green anchors the play, gets to Naslund, who sets it up perfect for Nyland. And Montreal is on the board, but they trail 3-1. Stu Gavin has the empty netter, and the Whalers take it 4-1. Ginger and Green have a very rough game. Even Svoboda, who didn't play that bad, was barely anywhere to be found, however. Robinson also had a rough game, as did Naslund. Waugh played perhaps the worst game of these playoffs yet, but also has ran into red-hot goalie Mike Liut, and Stu Gavin and Sylvain Turgeon took them apart. Game 2. After being taken to task for their performance, Gindra is out, Lawler is in, and Svoboda is being benched. And Kornick will play defense on some shifts. Perron means business. Well, the Habs come out flying, however, and Liut, however, is steadfast in net. But Waugh has shaken off Game 1 and is also making huge stops once again. But then on a power play, Robinson controls and steers and drives over to Dallin, who sets up for the rookie Richer. The Habs draw first blood, and 4.5 minutes later, Nyland finds Carbonneau to make it 2-0. And speaking of Carbonneau, he is pouncing on Ron Francis, as is Scrudlin, while Gainey and McPhee are fearless against the powerful wingers such as Turgeon, Gavin, and Deneen. The Habs take a 2-0 lead into the first intermission. Montreal is playing a very smart defensive game, and while they do get the Waugh at times, the young rookie is making unbelievable stops. However, Rick Green clears the puck out to Carbonneau, who goes in on Liut, who scores his second goal of the game. Carbonneau, 3-0 Montreal. But the Whalers get one back on the power play just over a minute later. But as he did in the first round, Waugh refocuses and shines, and they still lead 3-1 after 2. In the third, Montreal is playing a very similar trap system that they did with Lemaire coach the year prior, and it protects their lead. And they go on to win it 3-1, and the series is tied at 1 apiece. What a huge night for Guy Carbonneau, not only keeping opposing centers in check, but a huge 2-goal night, his first 2 of these playoffs. Waugh is back to the game he played in the first round. Chelios played a beauty here as well, rocking some Whalers with some big hits. And the Habs shutdown game especially is on point as they built the lead. Hey, what a game. Game 3, Whaler Mania is running wild at the Civic Center. Svoboda is reactivated for the game, but the excited crowd is catcalling the Habs, but they refuse to lose focus. Once again, they stick to that strategy. They keep the pressure on Liut and let the shutdown gang and grinders keep an eye on the forwards. And defense to give Waugh some breathing room. And just 4:48 in, a dangerous line. Mats to Bobby to Gel. Dallin, who has been facing some harsh criticism as of late, gets his first playoff goal. It's 1-0 Montreal. The Whalers, however, lose Liut to injury, and the Habs must pounce on this as Steve Weeks come in and they look to take advantage. And indeed, on a power play, Dallin sees Robinson open at the point and sets up Richer. Habs lead 2-0 after 1. 4:09 into the second period, Scrudlin feeds Lemieux at the wing, and Claude the Clutchter makes it 3-0 Montreal. But 32 seconds later, the Whalers get on the board. Montreal's defense is doing their thing. They still carry a 3-1 lead, however, after 2. And again, the third. That smart trap strategy that Perron learned from coaching under Lemaire as an assistant, using it to keep the lead protected, and it's working. And Waugh makes the big saves when he's called to do so. But with 1:22 to go, Carbonneau gets the empty netter. Montreal wins this one 4-1, taking an important 2-1 series lead. Dallin answers his critics emphatically with a huge game, a goal and a helper, and showing more spark. And Carbonneau is Scrudlin, our vultures on Ronnie franchise, who's yet to notch a single point in this series. Chelios again throwing his weight around and giving the Habs a great edge. Montreal is praised for how controlled, focused, and disciplined, and overall how everyone up and down the lines and pairings and goaltending they have been in the last couple games. Game 4, however, the Whaler faithful is still rabid and has faith, but the Habs have a chance to completely take control of this series heading back home. Hartford does know, I should say, that Weeks can't make the type of saves Liut can, so they change their strategy up a bit and try to play the Habs at their own defensive game, and it seems to be working, and the Whalers forwards respond and they take a 1-0 lead after 1 period. It seems though whenever Montreal does get momentum and get to Weeks, he is there to make the save. And the second period sees Montreal very controlled in every aspect, but sees the Waugh and the defense is not allowing Hartford to build their lead. Montreal still trailed 1-0 after 2. And much of the third saw our heroes not able to get anything going, but they finally catch a break on a power play as Smith surveys things. He gets to Gainey, who finds Naslund, his first goal of the series, and we have a tie game. And the clock runs down, and for the first time in these playoffs, we're going to overtime. Well, Montreal's had a fair bit of issues in overtime this season, and in 107 in, Kevin Dineen continues those issues, sending the Civic Center into jubilation. Montreal loses. The series is tied 2-2. And the Habs didn't play a bad game by any means. They just ran into a determined and hardworking Whalers club on this night. Wall again made some spectacular saves, but his OT savvy, or lack thereof, is now in question. Well, Game 5. The series has become unpredictable as we hit the Montreal Forum. Media reports of Svoboda's health speculate him to be hurt. However, there is ongoing tension with Perron, and the rumor being that Svoboda is slacking in practice, and also in certain games, Perron is fed up with it and feeling the youngster hasn't truly delivered like he did in the regular season. But anyway, series momentum is on the line. For the opening puck drop, the Habs launch an all-out attack. And on a power play just over 2 minutes into the game, Robinson and Chelios control the situation for the point. And the duo sets up Claude Lemieux for his third goal of these playoffs, and gaining more and more fans as the Habs take a 1-0 lead. And then while killing a penalty, Ludwig makes the clear out. Gainey goes on weeks with Carbonneau, and Guy scores 2-0 Montreal. Then just over 4 minutes later on a power play, Gainey over to Smith on the side to Naslund, 3-0 Montreal. The Whalers get one back, but the Habs lead 3-1 after one. The Canadiens are very much in control of the second period, once again going back to what they did best in games 2 and 3, protecting their lead. But Dineen breaks through and gets his second of the game, and Montreal's lead is cut to 3-2. But just over 2 minutes later, Dallin gets the puck to Robinson, and he's about to Mike Lawler, who launches it home, fooling Weeks, his first career playoff goal. What a huge moment for the youngster. 4-2, Montreal leads after 2. The Whalers put up a fight, however, and at the midway point of the third, get back to within a goal. It's 4-3. As Hartford tries to press, but Green gets the puck out to Nyland, who sets up Carbonneau with 1:19 to play. Another 2-goal game for Guy, and it's a 5-3 win in Montreal. They take a 3-2 series lead, pushing the Whalers to the brink of elimination. Another big game performance from Carbonneau with his 2 notches, as vets Gainey and Robinson with 2 assists each playing a beauty. Waugh again making some key saves, and the Habs are just 1 win away from reaching the Wales Conference Final for the second time in 3 seasons. To paraphrase Morpheus from The Matrix, they're starting to believe. Game 6 back at the Civic Center. The Habs are a win away, but many thought they wouldn't make it to a conference final. And the Whalers, however, do get a boost. Mike Liut is back in net. And the Habs continue, however, to keep up their attack and protect their strategy. And it's working. Wasn't facing much pressure, but is again making outstanding saves when he's called to do so. But Liut is a machine, and despite bombarding him, despite missing the last couple of games, it's scoreless after 1. The game is a bit more intense, with many scuffles and penalties, but the teams do calm down. In the second period, 7:30 in, Dineen scores, as he continues to have the Habs number in this series, and it's 1-0 Hartford to carry that lead into the third. Waugh's not facing much pressure, but making big saves, making sure Hartford can't build their lead. Habs defense is doing what they have to do, but Liut is a shield out there, a force field pretty much, and our heroes can't solve him. The Whalers hang on to win, 1-0, a shocking turn of events. The series is going to be forced into a 7th and deciding game. Once again, the Habs ran into a hot goaltender in Liut on this night, and Waugh wasn't necessarily bad at all in goal, and he didn't let in a bad goal in the other one he allowed, but the Whalers now have momentum. That's the point, with Liut back in net in top form. Experts and analysts actually truly believe the Habs' timing might be up, and that the Whalers are going to take a big step into being the next Big Adams Division powerhouse. Game 7. April 29th, 1986, the Montreal Forum. And hey, the Habs aren't playing bad by any means, but again, they now just run into a team on their level, with an edge in certain situations. However, that didn't stop the media from calling out several Montreal stars such as Naslund, Smith, and Robinson. Richer and Dallin are also taking a task, and the Habs pretty much have Ron Francis non-existent in this series, but it's still gone 7 games. It's Dineen they really have to focus their attention on. He's been the force. Well, here we go. The first period was very much even keel for the most part. Habs are putting pressure on Liut, hoping to get somewhere, and it does not work. Well, Waugh's facing a little more pressure in this game, but he says, "Wrong again, Ronnie. Meet my glove, Gavin. Farewell, Ferraro." And the Habs, well, they finally get their big break. The Whalers are on a power play, but a bad pass leads Mike McPhee to take the puck. He goes it on Mike Liut, and he shoots, he scores! A huge goal. The Forum is going crazy, and Montreal leads 1-0 after 1. In the second period, Montreal continues to apply pressure, but Liut isn't letting them build the lead. And indeed, the checkers are all over Dineen and make sure he can't get any momentum going. It seems to be working, as Robinson also faces his direction several times and keeps stopping him from creating momentum. Carbonneau and Skrudland make Ronnie Franchise their personal B-word yet again. And Watt is a beast. He's turning back everything as the Habs faithful showers him with cheers every time he makes a save, even denies Dineen. It's still 1-0 Montreal after 2. The third period, the Habs work to protect their lead, and the anticipation of victory is building. With 2:48 left, Dave Babich silences the forum. The game is all tied up, and we're heading to overtime. You can almost feel a sense of a dreaded cloak over the Habs faithful, and their OT woes in the regular season really just fresh in their minds, and also what happened in Game 4. Well, either way, Montreal is not losing focus. You can see that they have the look of someone who wants to win. And the look through Watt's mask, and he is determined, and he has played a beauty here tonight. But he wants to win. But the tension was visible. An incident with Scott Kleindorst and Chris Nyland boiled up just over 5 minutes into the extra frame. But once the water settled, it was back to hockey. The Habs had control of the puck in the Whalers' zone. McPhee and Skrudland were keeping the puck in it. As it went behind the net, Lemieux battled hard for possession. He swoops out in front with a nice backhander on goal. He scores! Claude Lemieux scores! And the Montreal Canadiens take it in overtime in the 7th deciding game, and indeed are headed to the Wales Conference Final. An exciting game to cap it off and to silence the naysayers. A truly great hockey series, I must say, as the Habs took out a team that proved to be their equal more than anything. But so many thought Montreal's chances of making it past the second round in general going into these playoffs were slim. Claude Lemieux's name is forever immortalized in Habs Nation because of this goal. This game has been what is, I guess you could say, a big part of the Habs story in these playoffs. That if the big stars aren't going to, I guess you could say, rack up the numbers, the hungry youngsters driven by a desire to achieve something and a passion to win are going to be the ones to step up. Lemieux did just that, so did McPhee, and so did players like Brian Skrudland, and so players like Patrick Waugh, who is stopping 24 shots, but all in his biggest clutch performance of his career, and the most important game he has played, at least to this point. One of the leading scorer in this series was Guy Carbonneau with his 5 goals for 5 points, and 2 goal performances. First in the important Game 2 victory to tie the series, and in Game 5 to take the series lead. The best all-around forward in this series, I will gladly say. He is not only scoring those big goals, but he was key in holding Ron Francis off the score sheet in the entire series, holding him to 4 shots in 7 games. Second place was a 3-way tie for 4 points. Mats Naslund had 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points, and a -4, which doesn't sound great, but he delivered enough to keep his team going at crucial moments. Gilles Dallin finally came alive in these playoffs with a couple really good games. He had a goal and 3 helpers for 4 points, was an even 0, and was a force especially in Game 3. And Larry Robinson had 4 assists, again played well for the most part, despite having some rough patches along the way, but ultimately delivered for his club, especially in Game 5. Well, Claude the Clutcher was also becoming a hero, and Chris Nyland had a great series, even though he didn't get enough recognition for his work ethic here. Bobby Smith, however, did struggle and took some flack. Stefan Richer had a couple key goals, but didn't play as well as he did in the first round. Skrudland's hard work and hustle, however, cannot be ignored, and neither can that of Mike McPhee, as along with Lemieux on their line, they were just warriors out there. Debelois, however, was largely absent in many games, but Kordic, who also played defense several times, was taking no guff from anyone. But again, Captain Bob Gainey doing what he does best, and that's playing whatever role is necessary for any given time in any given game. He had a really good series. Well, Carbonneau led the series with a +4, as again, he was indeed the best all-around forward for Montreal in this whole series. And really showing the hockey world just why he can deliver in many different ways. And while not hired to be a superstar goal scorer, he can score at the crucial moments. But he can also defend against anyone out there, give his team an advantage when they need it the most. Larry Robinson led all defensemen in scoring once again with 4 assists, and he was solid, but I'd say the best defenseman in the series, and I will boldly say and die on this hill, was Mike Lawler. I mean, Perron was clearly impressed with the rookie's development as the season has progressed, and he indeed always tweaked his game, and he has worked hard to prove himself that he belongs here, and delivered in a big way. Chris Chelios, however, was still delivering the physical edge the Habs needed. Craig Ludwig also stepped up his game this series, and despite a few rough moments, Rick Green really came through for his team. The controversy, however, surrounding the relationship between Peter Svoboda and Jean Perron did make a few headlines, but while again he wasn't terrible in the few games he played, again he didn't quite deliver on what we're used to seeing from him. Either way, this defensive core played like champions. And hey, the man who earlier in the season the fans wanted sent back to the AHL is suddenly a hero in their hearts, and that man is Patrick Roy. After a rough start in this series, he remained focused, and despite some speed bumps along the way, overall he played fantastic and again came through, especially in the all-important Game 7. It wasn't just in Montreal anymore either. Roy was getting noticed more and more nightly, not just on TSN, but hockey analysts and writers everywhere point out that the rookie isn't playing like a rookie. He again played every minute of this series too, finished with a 4-3 record, an insane 1.69 goals against average against a highly potent offensive club, I might add, a .924 save percentage, a notch higher than the Boston series. But did he have anything left? Well, awaiting the Habs the Wales Conference Finals, another unexpected foe that wasn't even meant to get past the first round, let alone the second. And that's the New York Rangers, the very team that Montreal beat for their most recent cup to date in 1979. The team finished with a mediocre record of 34, 38, and 8 for 76 points, 11 less than the Habs, and barely clinched fourth place in the Patrick Division, just 2 points ahead of the Penguins for the final spot. But be that as it may, they very much earned the right to get this far, as they've taken 2 of the top teams, not just in their division, but the entire Wales Conference out of the playoffs. In a thrilling best-of-5 series over the defending conference title holders, the heavy favorites, the Flyers, they stunned the hockey world, taking out the 110-point club, and the second-best record in the whole league. But nobody even thought they'd get past the Washington Capitals, who had 107 points, had the third-best record in the league. Rangers did it in 6 games. They were officially a threat. There was no clear-cut favorite here, as despite the regular season difference between their records. But in the 3 games the Habs played against the Rangers, they didn't win a single one. They went 0-2-1 against the Blue Shirts. However, they had one of the weakest power plays in the league, an average penalty kill at best, and the second worst goal total in the league, but their strength was defense and goaltending, giving up the third least goals in the league. Head coach Ted Sator, however, has his boys focused and determined as this miracle run continues. Let's see who guides the Cinderella team. Now, there were, however, talented forwards and very gifted talent on this club, including new rookie sensation Mike Ridley, a gifted center with tremendous size and not afraid to go up against anyone. He had a nice scoring touch. For the Rangers this year, he had 22 goals, 43 assists for 65 points in 80 games and was an even 0. He barely missed on being a finalist for the Calder Trophy, coming in 4th. He was a driving force that helped them pull out of the first round upset against the Flyers. They had more size than another up-and-comer and sophomore Swedish import Thomas Sandstrom. 25 goals, 29 assists for 54 points in 73 games, and led the team in goals. Physical player, not afraid to assert himself either, and was solid on defense and checking situations. This forward had more talent that also dealt with injuries. Someone Habs vets Robinson gaining a while, and that's Pierre LaRouche. Only played 28 games, but still scored 20 goals. And he won 2 cups in Montreal previously. He was a former 50-goal scorer with them too. And he's red hot in these playoffs with 10 points in 6 games over the Caps. Veteran Don Maloney was solid still, and was actually one of the players left over from the 79 Rangers who took on the Habs. They also had hungry Kelly Miller. Bob Brook notched 24 goals. Mark Osborne missed 12 games, but he's playoff hungry. Mike Allison missed most of the season, but here he is. And also Jan Eriksson, Brian McClellan, and new acquisition to add some goals, pesky forward Wolf Paymont. The defense, however, is rock solid, led by Finnish import Riho Rusalainen. And despite not being a big guy, his skating skills allowed him to work in any zone defensively or offensively. He had 17 goals, 42 assists for 59 points. It was a team-leading plus 22 and was 4th in the league in defensive point shares with a 5.7. Also on the score was the grossly underrated James Patrick, 9th overall pick for the Rangers in 1981, and he really broke out this year. 14 goals, 29 assists, 43 points in 75 games, and wasn't afraid to use his size to throw a good hit. He was also a plus 14. All-star veteran Ron Greshner, however, is out of action and out for the season, as is Barry Beck. They'll rely on Larry Milnick, Willie Huber, and Joel Samuelson. But their MVP was the man between the pipes, the man they call Beezer. John Van Beesema, great at playing any angle, quick and at times aggressive. He had an amazing record of 31, 21, and 5. His wins were tied for best in the league. His 3.33 goals against average was 5th best. His 87 save percentage was 9th best. He had 3 shutouts, which was tied for 3rd. And he was honored as the NHL's top goalie, winning the Vezina Trophy, so of course that means he is a first-team All-Star. He also came in 5th for Hart Trophy voting as League MVP. And he's been sharp against some sharp-shooting and goal-scoring teams in these playoffs, and has played very well in every game so far. Well, here we go. Game 1 at the Montreal Forum amongst the excited throng of Habs fans. Both teams, however, have a fire lit under them, and was a marvel in that you lose LaRouche, stopped you Sandstrom, and yeah, right, Ridley. But at the other end of the ice, Beezer is also giving the Habs a rough time. Both men are putting on a clinic, and it's scoreless after one. 3:08 into the second period, Smith comes out breaking into the puck, sees Naslund on his wing, sets it up for Mats Naslund getting the goal. On a nice play, Montreal leads 1-0. However, 5.5 minutes later, the Rangers on a power play tie it. But then 4:14 after that, Carbonell begins, Chelios continues, and Gainey scores 2-1 Montreal, and it remains that way after 2. New York puts a great deal of pressure on Waugh, but the puck only meets him or his equipment and stays out of the net. He's putting on a show. Habs faithful once again cheering him every time he stops it. And because of that, the Habs take game 1. 2-1, a thrilling outing as both teams are really hustling out there. And Montreal is the one, however, who emerges with a big W. Waugh was named for star of the game thanks to his 26 saves and a big win. All around great effort from pretty much everyone here. And a focused and disciplined outing for Les Bleus Blancs et Rouges. Game 2, it's a little more intense as the Rangers come out flying and put early pressure on Waugh, gives them a 1-0 lead just 3:15 in. The Habs, however, settle down and try not to get lured into the Rangers game. And they give Waugh some breathing room. Boisvert, who's in for Gel Dallin, begins a play that leads to Chelios near the point. The puck comes to Bobby Smith, breaking his goalless slump and tying the game near the midway point. Waugh makes a stop when called to do so, and Carbonell is in the face of LaRouche, and Skrudland takes in the boards on several occasions. It remains 1-1 after 1. And just 1:41 into the second, Gainey to his fellow vet commander Robinson, putting it on for Carbonell. He scores. Habs lead 2-1. There's lots of scuffles, lots of brouhahas, but don't escalate into much until John Cordick says to George McPhee, "What the five knuckles say to the face? Punch!" Anyway, this is meant to motivate, and it's the Habs who respond. As Green clears out the puck to Lemieux, who sees his man Mike McPhee. It's a goal, 3-1 Montreal. And exactly 4 minutes later, Gainey makes a setup play to Claude Lemieux, the youngster's 7th goal of these playoffs, 4-1 Habs. Waugh's making big saves again, but the defense is really in the face of the Rangers in this one. The Habs are killing a penalty late in the period. Aaron Rangers pass leads a stick of Carbonell. Bye-bye, Beezer. Gee scores his 2nd goal of the game, 7th of these playoffs, his 3rd 2-goal game. 5-1 Montreal after 2. In the 3rd, the Rangers did get one back on a power play, but on a power play of their own, the Rangers failed to clear the puck, and Chris Chelios fires a rocket past Glenn Hanlon, who has come into the game, and the Habs lead and win 6-2 and take a big 2-0 series lead. Another great collaborative effort from everyone on the ice who suited up, but this time it leads to a monster win. Guy Carbonell, what a postseason he is having. Another 2-goal game, also killing in the face-off circle and on the check. Chelios' his best performance so far in these playoffs, a goal, a helper, and one of those big hits. Claude Lemieux, well, where did this kid come from? That's what the question that many of the experts and the analysts were asking. A goal and a helper, and Bob Gainey, +3 with his 2 helpers. Rick Green plays superbly. Gaston Gindra has looked better since his return to the lineup in this series, and Larry Robinson plays a beauty as well. Well, Waugh made some highlight reel saves once again. Habs are in a good spot. Game 3. We shift to the Big Apple, and the ruckus the Rangers fans are causing is loud enough to show that they still believe in their club, and this is far from over. And indeed, the MSG crowd goes into a frenzy as the frustrated Waugh lets it go, but he has to get himself together, and we would see afterwards would be nothing short of brilliant. Habs do get it in it, however, less than 3 minutes later, we're on a power play. Claude, back to Chris, to Stéphane Maurice. He ties the game. The Rangers are like a firing squad in a Waugh, but the rookie goaltender is playing like a ferocity of a veteran, and the Rangers are making some great plays. Smooth moves by LaRouche. Waugh drops, and he is denied. McClellan firing like a sniper on the wing. Waugh takes the bullet, but bears no wound and stops it. Paymont driving it in. The youngster is fearless against the brute. It remains 1-1 after 1. Second period, it's much of the same. Beezer is denying the Habs himself, but man alive, out comes the glove, the puck is in there. The stick turns him away, the pad, poof, the sound goes as it pops back out. And the Rangers eventually do get to him on a Mike Ridley goal, and it's a 2-1 lead for the New York after 2. Waugh's faced a barrage of shots so far, but nothing compared to what we would see later. In the third period, it'll be no different, as the Habs need to respond to their goalie's performance, and indeed, just over 5 minutes in, Robinson clears the puck to a wide-open Naslund in a goal, and he scores! We're tied 2-2. Why is Sauer still standing on his head? Wraparound chance for Sandstrom. No. St. Patrick is there. Mark Osborne fires away while channeling his inner Bruce Lee with his quickness as the puck is just not in the net, but the Rangers do eventually get to him once again. 3-2 on a Bob Brook goal. The time is counting down, and Wa's doing everything he can to keep his Habs in it. But he's been the game of his life, but they're losing. Rangers shot, stop, rebound, in Wa's glove, smothers it. The Habs going to power play. Naslund from the wing back to Robinson. This could be dangerous. He finds Bobby Smith, and with 2:04 to play, we are tied, and now we go to overtime. Sandstrom tries everything he can to get to Wa, and the Rangers pile on the pressure. Again, a beautiful pass they make, and Wa stops it. Rebound comes out, the defense swats it. Back in the blue line, shot by the Rangers, stopped by Wa. Osborne, loose puck. He has it. No, he stopped again. And after that play, Wa appears to be hurt, but after being checked on by trainers, he shakes off the exhaustion. No, he wants to see this thing through. Then a mishap with the puck, but Wa baseball slides back near the crease to stop it. The Rangers just are not letting up, and Wa is like an acrobat out there. So much so the MSG Network and their analyst, Hockey Hall of Famer Phil Esposito, points out the spark of comparisons between Wa and the man that Espo ran afoul of himself back in 1971, a fellow by the name of Ken Dryden. And there the Rangers continue. Shot from the wing. Sprawl stops it. The Habs need to catch a break here up front, but they're not applying much pressure on the other end. But again, stars. The Rangers jam at the puck. Here he is once again. He reaches deflection, and even CBC's Bob Cole utters out, "I can't believe it." Then 9:41 to this OT. It happened. The Rangers fired a shot that bounced off an opposing skater, and Mike McPhee battles for the puck. He falls, he gets right back up, sees an open Claude Lemieux. He scores! The Habs win 4-3. Lemieux, his second OT goal of these playoffs. Wow, Claude Clutcher is the one to respond. The Habs lead the series 3-0 on the verge of a sweep, 1 win away from that long-awaited return to the Stanley Cup Finals. But indeed, the story of the night. Patrick Waugh, the rookie with the heart of a lion, the will to win, and playing the high-pressure playoff savvy of a veteran. 44, count him up, 44 saves. He was truly the hero on this night. Even the greatest of goalies at this time could have succumbed to the high-octane pressure the Rangers were piling in overtime. But not the man who on this night would be officially ordained St. Patrick. Hockey analysts across Canada, coast to coast, outlets in the U.S. are airing the highlight reels and in awe of what this 20-year-old youngster pulled off on this night. Also, great games from Robinson and Naslund here, and kudos to Claude the Clutcher as well as McPhee for his will to keep that play alive. Indeed, as great as he has been in these playoffs, this was truly the night, the legend of Patrick Waugh, and all he could do, especially in the postseason, was truly born on that date, May 5th, 1986, at Madison Square Garden. But it's not over yet. The Habs still need to win one more to get to the promised land. In Game 4, we're still in New York. And the Rangers are not just going to roll over and die. Peter Svoboda returns as Rick Green is out of action. And early on, Waugh is showing he hasn't run out of gas by a long shot, but neither has Beezer on the other end. Both goalies are playing with an uncanny determination. But late in the first period, a mishap on the usually flawless power play actually is the Rangers to getting a shorthanded goal, and it's 1-0 New York after 1. Again, Waugh and Beezer are still putting on a show in the second, and even many scuffles and tussles break out in the second, and so does an all-out fight with Nyland and Melnick. But Beezer is still behind the door. It's still 1-0 New York after 2. Third period, the Habs are applying more pressure, but they just can't get a goal. And with 6:32 left, Sandstrom gets a goal to make it 2-0 Rangers as the heat on both teams boils over into more penalties. And it was a game that saw over 100 penalty minutes, but the Rangers win it 2-0 thanks to their goalie having a big night. Wassel stopped 27 shots, but the Rangers aren't out yet to stay alive. But the Habs are still very much in the driver's seat, leading the series 3-1. And Montreal fired in 30 shots on John Van Beesbrook in this one. Game 5, back at the Montreal Forum, and the fans are psyched. They can feel it coming. The journey of 7 insane, crazy, story-filled, and disappointing years culminating in an unlikely return to the big dance. But nearly 4 minutes in, the Rangers get on the board. And the Habs are again bombarding Van Beesbrook, but he's not giving up anything early on. But on a power play, Chelios surveys from the point, gets across to Gindra, who puts it right on the spot for Claude the Clutcher. Another big goal for the rookie at the right time. Montreal ties it with 1:39 left in the period. And in the second, on another power play, 4:41, Robinson anchors. Claude has again, and he sets up Bobby Smith at center. He has roared back in this series. Montreal leads 2-1 as the Forum erupts. And they're playing a smart defensive game, but Wall's making those huge stops once again. But the lead is protected, and it's 2-1 after 2. 20 minutes away from reaching the Stanley Cup. Can they do it? In the third period, they're keeping the Rangers at bay. The Blue Liners, the Grinders, the shutdown core, they're all doing their thing. Even the top guys are playing very smartly in terms of defensive and checking. But near the midway point of the period, Dave Maley sends the puck to Captain Bob Gainey. He scores 3-1 Montreal. Yes! The clock counts down. 5 minutes. Just hang on, boys. 1 minute to play. 1 minute. The entire foreign faithful is on their feet. 30 seconds. The arena is shaking. 10 seconds. The Habs players on the bench stand up, eager to celebrate. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The Montreal Canadiens are going back to the Stanley Cup final for the first time since 1979, beating the New York Rangers 3-1, winning the series 4-1. Habs players mob Patrick Roy, a gesture as if to say, hey, we know it was you. Who would have thought a team comprised of rookies, sophomores, players barely a few years into the game, a couple veterans, would make it this far? But they did. Another huge game for Claude Lemieux, proving to be a playoff pressure warrior out there. A goal and a helper, but everyone shifted out there, be it for 20 or 5 minutes, made their ice time mean something, and credit has to go to head coach Jean Ferrand. Hey, as questionable as his moves may be, they've been answered with a berth in the Stanley Cup final. The media needs to remember to keep their words soft and sweet, because eventually, sometimes they have to eat them. However, the Habs may have a dance with Lord Stanley coming, but can they make it to the floor and take first prize? Claude Lemieux, once again, the unexpected hero, barely known in the hockey world before these playoffs, was making himself known as he led the series with 6 points, 3 goals, 3 assists, and a +1, all points coming in 3 1-goal, 1-assist performances, and of course his memorable Game 3 overtime goal, again, showing he's the man that the Habs need out there in crucial situations, even going into the final. He is showing a great deal of desire out there and playing like a man possessed. Chris Chelios came alive on the score sheet in this series with a goal and 4 assists for 5 points. He was a -2, but dishing out a lot of punishment and making magic happen from the point and key in this series win. He is proving to be a man tailor-made for playoff hockey himself. And a 3-way tie for third in scoring. Bobby Smith, 3 goals and a helper, 4 points, a +3 after the rough series he had against the Whalers. The All-Star center re-emerged big time in this series, once again going back to his two-way expertise. Bob Gainey, the seasoned vet, the captain, the leader, 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points, a +2. He's going to show you just why he is a playoff-made man out there. The jewels of those 4 cup rings were pumping the blood that beat his never-say-die heart. And Larry Robinson, the other veteran, 4 helpers, and he again was steering the Habs like he has always done throughout his career, and players are responding to his presence out there. Well, the other forwards, Guy Carbonneau, another big 2-goal game, still working hard on all ends of the ice surface. Naslund may not be racking up monster numbers, but overall in this series, he's played pretty fundamentally well. Mike McPhee again making a difference, especially with that assist in the Game 3 OT winner to Lemieux. Screwlin still provided an edge. Serge Boisvert, who stood up for 3 games, was actually a surprising presence. Now and then Kordic were savage as always. Richer was, Dallin only played a couple games, and Debelois was working hard when he had the chance. Well, as I already just pretty much stated, Chris Chelios led all defensemen in scoring here, and had a great series with those 5 points. But he was really growing in his young game, and yeah, it's hard to imagine Chris Chelios was ever young at any point in his career, but the maturity he showed here in these playoffs was truly amazing. Speaking of maturity, again, Mike Lawler continues to be the unsung hero of this postseason. Not only is he playing with fire and determination out there, making the most of this opportunity, but he has become very impactful in many games. He is truly growing as these playoffs progress. His +4 was tied for the team best in the series with, Larry Robinson. He continues to excel, as I mentioned earlier, as his role as a veteran leader cannot be overstated enough. Rick Green was actually playing quite well until he got hurt. Craig Ludwig had his struggles, but ultimately was good. Gaston Ginger got another chance. He played pretty well for the most part. Peter Svoboda returned, but was at best. But of course, the man everyone was talking about was the rookie between the pipes, Patrick Roy. His historic performance in Game 3 birthed a legend, not only sparking comparisons to legendary Hab Ken Dryden, but even the late-great Hall of Famer Terry Sawchuk and his brilliance back in 1952 for the Detroit Red Wings. I can't emphasize enough that despite being a rookie, again, he had the mindset of a man with so much experience and just able to play under pressure. and he had the determination unlike anything many had seen in years. He has yet to miss a singular second of these playoffs. A 4-1 record in this series, of course, an insane 1.74 goals against average, a phenomenal, his highest yet in a playoff series, .938 save percentage. And he wasn't even the official number one guy exactly when the season started 7 months earlier. He got the opportunity of a lifetime, and now he gets the opportunity of a lifetime. So, it has come down to this. It's crazy to think that since the Habs 70s dynasty came to an end, that they've had a lot of really good regular seasons, excellent ones even. And this one was good, but not great. And there were 3 100-point clubs, multiple division champions, and even a miracle run. They couldn't make it, but this team is the one that returns to the Stanley Cup Finals. The 86 Stanley Cup playoffs were nothing short of insane, crazy, and downright shocking. Habs faced teams on or near on their level or even keel with them. But their rookie goalie Patrick Roy has done something nearly improbable, and he has gotten to this point. Claude Lemieux, again cut from training camp, seizing the chance to show what he's made of, has also stunned the hockey world with his brilliant clutch play. Rookies like Brian Skrudlin and Mike Lawler, who showed a tireless work ethic, can live a dream that few expected them to even realize this quick. Former number 1 draft pick Bobby Smith, seen as an elite forward in the NHL for several years now, after a miracle run in Minnesota in 1981, gets to write another chapter of an unlikely story, but hopes to be the winner in this one. Mats Naslund faced the pressure of being a superstar in a hockey market under a microscope constantly, and he's gotten the glory, he's gotten the adulation, he's also gotten the flack and the hardship, but in the end he's faced it head on, and now he has a chance to be a champion. Guy Carbonneau, a Quebec native who watched the Habs and even a couple of his teammates get their names on that silver barrel, is 4 wins away from joining his idols. Sophomores such as Chris Chelios, who endured injury and hardship, Mike McPhee, who was a warrior out there, can realize a dream. Rick Green was considered a wash and a waste in exchange for Rod Langway, and now gets a chance to have the last laugh. Craig Ludwig was given a chance to thrive, and now he can do so on the big stage. Chris Nyland, loved by fans since the moment he put on a pair of gloves, seeks glory. Young John Kordic, also given a chance on the main roster, can raise the cup with those bruised knuckles. Gaston Gindra, who at the start of the season wasn't sure if he'd see an NHL game again, but he gets another chance. And the biggest chance of his career, no less. Rookie Jal Dallin and Stéphane Richer, despite some consistency issues this postseason, can forget all that and be winners in the end. Peter Svoboda, alas, may not get the chance, as his play this postseason hasn't matched that of the regular season, and rumor is he's battling injuries. Dave Maley barely played any games this year, but will play in these finals, like a Christmas gift come early. And of course, the great Larry Robinson and the great Bob Gainey. 2 men who are the cornerstones of the Habs dynasty. Larry with 5 rings, Gainey with 4. The respective last 2 Conn Smythe Trophy winners of the last 2 Stanley Cup wins for the Montreal Canadiens. Larry's having a resurgent year, one of the best of his 14-year career. And Gainey, the chance to finally win one as the captain. And he's finally getting a chance to shut those up who question his leadership. Jean Perron's unorthodox and often questioned methods are paying off. John Mitchell Serge Savard, however, has proven he's qualified for this job. Now it can be fully proven 110% indisputably. Here we go. Awaiting the Montreal Canadiens in the Stanley Cup Final, another club nobody expected to go far, the Calgary Flames. This will indeed be the first Stanley Cup since 1967, since the Leafs and the Habs squared off, that'll feature 2 Canadian-based clubs in the final. Like Montreal, Calgary was a very good hockey club. They finished with a record of 40, 31, and 9 for 89 points, just 2 more than the Habs. The Flames were no stranger to winning first-round playoff series, as their domination of the 3-game sweep over the Winnipeg Jets showed in the opening round. But when you're in the same division as Wayne Gretzky and the high-powered Oilers, getting them past the second round is, well, not really feasible. And I mentioned how these 86 playoffs were chock full of shocks and upsets. Well, there was no bigger shock or upset when the Flames beat out the Oilers in 7 games in the 3rd edition of the Battle of Alberta. The Oilers were 2-time defending champions. They were dominating the league like few others have in the history of the NHL, and this season was no different. But the Flames, they did the unthinkable. They caused them to make several mistakes, and that made them very, very dangerous. Then in the Campbell Conference Final, only the second semifinal series the Flames have made in their 14-year history, and despite letting a 3-1 series lead slip, they did beat St. Louis, yet another team not expected to go far, in 7 games. And now here they were, in their very first Stanley Cup Final. They were guided by a man with a brilliant mind for hockey, and that man is Badger Bob Johnson. Their coach, of course, in his nickname from his time guiding the highly successful University of Wisconsin Badgers program. And he was a key component in the growth of the American hockey program overall. Now in his 4th season as Flames coach, his hard work may finally pay off. And Cliff Fletcher, the man who's been the general manager since their inception in 1972, has literally built this team from the ground up. He may finally have built a winner. Montreal did, however, edge out the Flames in the season series, the record of 2-1-0 in the 3 games. Both wins, however, were decided by a single goal. Calgary's win was actually by 2 goals. The Flames, however, were a dangerous club, as I mentioned, and had scored the second most goals in the league, only behind their rivals, the Oilers. They had a few difficulties with their goaltending in this regular season, but overall have an amazing offensive-minded defense. But despite a weak penalty kill, their power play is 4th best, just 1 notch behind the Habs. But let's see just exactly who our heroes must contend with. First, the fearless leader, the mustachioed marvel, Lanny McDonald. 13 seasons in the NHL, an all-star, and playing in his first Stanley Cup Final. A fearsome wrist shot, aggressive play in the corners, a great handler of the puck, and one of the most respected leaders in the game. His ultimate dream has always been to win a Stanley Cup, to get that ring. After an injury-plagued season the year prior, Lanny played in all 80 games this year. 28 goals, 43 assists for 71 points. He's playing superbly in these playoffs, with 15 points in 17 games and a +9. Their big breakout star this year, however, was a bit of a shock in Dan Quinn. An Ottawa native and first-round pick from 1983, many thought that he was a wash, but he emerged this year with 30 goals, 42 assists for 72 points, leading the team in points, and he was a hard-working forward with excellent set-up abilities and able to score difficult goals at times. He also was a main key on the Flames' excellent power play, and in the playoffs he missed a few games in the Oilers series, but has 10 points in the 13 he has played, and is ready for these finals. Also on his talented forward core, a fellow countryman of Mats Naslund and a man who was his teammate at the 79 World Juniors, the 82 World Championships, and the 84 Canada Cup, Håkan Loob. Despite injuries, he scored 31 goals, 36 assists for 67 points in 68 games and was an excellent +24. He has reached the 30-goal mark in all 3 NHL seasons he has played thus far. He was one of the big reasons for the upset over Edmonton being pulled off. Like Naslund, what he lacked in size, he made up for in heart and desire and his unique set of skills. But what really put the Flames over the top this season and allowed them to be playoff contenders were 2 huge acquisitions made during the season. On February 1st, the Flames made a great deal in acquiring star winger Joe Mullen from the St. Louis Blues, a tenacious goal scorer. He was just marvelous in St. Louis, and he's now reached 3 straight 40-goal seasons. And since joining Calgary, in 29 games, he has 16 goals, 22 assists for 38 points. In overall scope of the season, was tied for 4th in the league with 8 game winners, a good clutch scorer. He also finished 8th in Lady Byng Trophy voting as one of the league's good guys. In the playoffs, he has been outstanding with 16 points in 17 games. The other big grab, however, was huge in terms of playoff experience, and that took place on March 11 when they obtained Islander superstar for the last 8 seasons, winger John Tonelli. With him going into these finals, he brings with him 4 Stanley Cup rings, and this will be his 6th finals appearance. Remarkable. He has a total of 130 games of playoff experience, which includes 80 points, including 14 points in 17 games this postseason and a +6. Tonelli's job, however, is to give his team momentum and possession, while indeed scoring some points here and there. He has been a beast for Calgary in these playoffs, and much like he was on the island, and much like Mullen is, he is a very tenacious player, and very few can work the corners better. This is an ace of a forward core that also includes aggressive forwards like Jim Poplinski and Joel Otto, the latter of whom is a rookie, but both had over 20 goals and were key in beating Edmonton. Steve Bozek is also a hardworking forward who also reached a 20-goal mark. Then yet another former Hab and a former teammate of Robinson and Gainey, Tough Doug Riseborough, brings 150 games of playoff experience and those 4 Stanley Cup rings. You also have nasty Tim Hunter, gritty Perry Barazan. The Flames' forward core is full of toughness and size and goals. It's a pretty good combo, and it might be tough for the Habs to handle. But now, the defense. And leading the way, the man with the blazing shot, Al MacInnis, 11 goals, 57 assists for 68 points. His +37 was 9th best in the NHL, and the anchor of the Flames' power play, 7th in power play goals and ice for. He had speed, agility, and nightmare for the opposition defensively as well, and a brilliant hockey mind and overall presence. He's emerging as one of the top blue liners in the league at his young age, but was snubbed from Norris Trophy voting. So far, he has 15 points in 16 games in these playoffs, a huge +8, and was truly at his best in the conference final win over the Blues. And the Flames this year did have another superstar emerge on the blue line. That's rookie Gary Suter, winner of the Calder Trophy as league's top rookie, 18 goals, 50 assists, 68 points, plus 11, tied for ninth with 69 power play goals on ice for. A nasty hard hitter, was having a great playoff, but was injured in the 7th game of the Edmonton series win, suffered knee ligament issues after colliding with Mark Messier, ending his season. He will not be ready for these finals. But there is a silver lining, and that is Paul Reinhart. He has been a huge impactful presence in these playoffs. He has missed most of the regular season, however, oddly enough, but still had 33 points in 32 games, and is a +8. This former first-round draft pick from 1979 has spent all 7 seasons of his career with the Flames. In these playoffs, he's been a huge difference maker in many key games and key moments, his puck-moving abilities and skating, and his 16 points don't exactly hurt either. Now, a big difference maker in these playoffs, and a man who never gets enough credit for his career, he's been grossly underrated the whole time, is Jamie McGowan. A hard-nosed defenseman, eager to hit and battles for the puck immensely. He also added 32 points, wasn't bad offensively, and was also a +16, but his fearless play in these playoffs has given the Flames momentum again at key moments where they need it the most. But now, the last line of defense. Now, as for the rest of the Flames blue line, however, I should say, they are going to be having a lot of, guys swooping in and out due to injury issues. But now the last line of defense, and guess what? The Flames themselves have been relying on a rookie goaltender to get them far. His name? Mike Vernon. A hometown boy has become a hometown hero in Calgary. A mentally cerebral goaltender with an amazing glove hand. Was picked all the way back in 1981, but has only played 21 games overall for the Flames since then. And 18 of those came this year, where he finished with a 9-3-3 record. Has yet to play a full season with a solid 3.39 goals against average, an .875 save percentage, and a shutout. And his run in the playoffs is almost as improbable as Waz, with even less pro experience to boot. He has a record of 11-5 in the postseason, an impressive .898 save percentage, and a 2.85 goals against average. Again, that's against a high-scoring division. Crazy to think how I stated you can count on one hand how many rookie goalies led their team to a cup, and now you have 2 of them scoring off against each other. That's indeed the wacky story. Yet another wacky story of these 86 playoffs. The Stanley Cup pitting 2 teams against one another that share, well, many aspects. And yet nobody expected either one of them to be here. But at the same time, they both deserve to be. Without any further ado, we're off. Game 1, May 16, 1986 at the Olympic Saddledome, the first ever Stanley Cup game to be played in the city of Calgary. Flames fever has swept across the town, and fans are making it known. The Habs, however, get a boost ahead of the game. Ryan Walter, who suffered a terrible eye injury, has been cleared to return. The Habs also keep Dave Mealy activated as Deblois is out, and Rick Green is back in as well. And the tension is mounting, and the Flames are using their toughness and aggressiveness, but it's Montreal who strikes first on a power play as Robinson controls, gets to Smith, who sets a Naslin, 1-0 Canadiens. The scuffles continue. The Flames are not ones to be messed with, and their scorers respond as goals by Tonelli and Poplinski make it 2-1 after 1. The second period, the Flames are just tossing the Habs around like ragdolls, but nobody is getting to the opposing goalie. Waz making some great saves. The period winds down, and Tim Hunter and Chris Nyland drop the gloves to the roar of the crowd. This is going to be an old-school playoff series from the looks of it. It remains 2-1 Calgary after 2. But the Habs make a rare, costly mistake on a power play that gives the Flames a 3-1 lead just 2:14 into the third. And then 1:19 later, it's 4-1 Calgary. The Flames are just destroying the Habs with 2:04 to play, however. Naslin makes a good play that gets the puck to Dave Mealy, who sets a Chris Chelios for a goal to make it 4-2. But it is too little too late. The Habs lose 5-2, a bad performance, and being outmuscled and just being battered by this Flames club. Carbonneau was all over the place, and Lawler was a disaster. Rookie Claude Lemieux got schooled. Wall made some solid saves, but in every facet, Montreal was pretty much outplayed in this one, and they need to rethink the strategy a lot going into the next game. And bad news, the Habs are going to be without Stéphane Richer for the rest of the playoffs. Game 2, Gindra is reactivated, and the Habs must not panic or lose focus, and don't let the Flames lure them into their type of game. But at the same time, they needed to show a little more aggression. They can't just be pushed around. But they still look all over the place to begin this game. And the Flames take advantage and score at 9:06 in. Hunter and Nyland, round 2 gets underway, but it does light a fire under the Habs as they hit Vernon with a barrage of shots, but he's stopping all of them, and he's playing an epic game. The Flames lead 1-0 after 1. Montreal takes a lot of bad penalties in just 15 seconds into the second period. They paid for it as the Flames convert one of their power play chances and lead 2-0. The visibly frustrated Waugh collects himself as he's eager to return to the man he was in Game 3 back in New York. And the Habs finally let the dust settle and regain focus as a failed attempt to get rid of the puck lands on the stick of Gaston Gindra, and what a moment for him. His first goal of these playoffs, and it's a biggie. The Habs are in it. Carbonell and Scrudland finally get a way to contain Dan Quinn, and he's restricted to a lot of what he can do. And Watt says, "Lose it, Lanny. Rock you, Reinhardt, and I dare you to shoot it, ow." And Robinson and Chelios derail Lube every step of the way as he can't even get close to Waugh. But the Flames still lead 2-1 after 2, and Montreal is playing a lot more focused. 3:30 into the third period, however, Chelios gets the puck to Carbonell, who sets up Dave Malia. What a moment for the 23-year-old Beaver Dam, Wisconsin native. Only 3 games in NHL experience before being called up late in the conference final, and scores his first professional goal in the Stanley Cup final, no less, and an important one to tie this game. What a huge moment, 2-2. The Habs apply pressure to Vernon, but Waugh keeps Calgary from regaining their lead. Both teams are playing smart hockey, and we're off to overtime. And indeed, the dust settles, as Waugh is no doubt up to the task. And the Flames better watch out for Claude Lemieux, as he's out there to take the opening line. And he lines up with Scrudland and McPhee. CBC color commentator John Davidson, however, makes a very interesting point as this OT period is about to get underway. And, well, we'll let the late great Don Whitman take you the rest of the way.
The longest overtime of the playoffs this season lasted 9 minutes 41 seconds, and that was Lemieux scoring a goal to beat the Rangers in New York. So anything can happen early here. From the face-off, McPhee brings it in with Scrudland. He scored!
Yes! 9 seconds! 9 seconds was indeed all it took. Off the puck drop, the Habs win the draw. Gets back to Lawler, who bounces up the puck to McPhee. Makes the great pass to Scrudland, whose backhand deflection stuns Mike Vernon, setting 2 unique NHL records. The fastest overtime goal in playoff history, which as of May 29, 2025 still stands, and Scrudland becomes the first player in NHL history to have his first career playoff goal be a Cup Final OT winner. What a moment for a man whose value to this team is not being spoken loud enough. And the bottom line, the Habs win! The series is tied 1-1. They shook off the cobwebs about the second period and shined and created a historic moment in the process. And now they look great heading home with the series tied. Game 3. The Montreal Forum, a jam-packed, excited crowd on May 20th, 1986. The first Stanley Cup final game to be played at the Forum since May 21st, almost 7 years to the day, 1979, when they won their 4th straight and to date last Stanley Cup. Larry and Bob remember, so do thousands of fans in attendance. And also, making his NHL debut for the Flames as some punk from Belleville named Brett Hall. And it gets nasty as the Habs are letting the Flames get to them, and they're down 2 men in the box, and Mullen makes easy work of a power play goal with a 5-on-3, 1-0. But just 1:05 later, Smith has the puck, then Robinson takes it and sends it in for Mats Naslund, his 7th goal of these playoffs, and the game is tied 1-1. The tension between these two teams as the heat rises from the Forum is starting to escalate further and further, but neither team can break the tie quite yet. Waugh making more big saves as the Habs fans shower their new hero with more cheers. But the Flames' top-notch power play gives them a 2-1 lead with 2:01 to go in the period. But 26 seconds later, dangerous trio strikes again. This time it's Mats Teleli to Bobby Smith. He scores and the game is tied 2-2. The glass of the Forum shakes. The Flames are called for holding, and just 8 seconds into the power play, 43 seconds left in the period, Chelios over to Walter, who sees Naslund on the other side. He scores his 2nd goal of the game, 3-2 Habs. Then 16 seconds later, Chelios sends it up to Carbonell, who sets up Bob Gainey, 4-2 Montreal. Where did this come from? But now Montreal has Calgary right where they want it. Right off the next puck drop, the Flames get frustrated and lose their cool. A battle of fists ensues with Nyland and Neil Sheehy going at it. And the Habs faithful at the Forum shower Nyland with cheers as he skates away after another battle. Montreal leads 4-2. Vernon's night is done and veteran Reggie Lemelin comes in. In the second period, the Flames get one back to cut the gap to 4-3, but then young punch master John Kordak decides that he's the one to go at it with Tim Hunter this time. This is a furious and brutal game. The Habs are clinging on to their lead as Waugh says, "Bite me, Berezin. Who are you, Hall? Ta-ta, Tonelli." But then a small scuffle ensues between McInnes and Walter, and a near nasty one breaks out, resulting in many misconducts, and then 120 penalty minutes in this game. Oh my goodness. But then with 38 seconds left in the period, Carbonell over to Gindra, setting up Dallin. A huge goal for the youngster who's been quiet in these playoffs gives the Habs a 5-3 lead after 2. In the third period, the dust settled, and the Habs protect their lead and With that, they hang on to take Game 3 and take a huge, important 2-1 series lead. Despite the brutality of these games, the Habs aren't losing sight of their ultimate goal and keeping their eyes on the prize. And wow, Naslund, his best performance in these playoffs. 2 goals, assist, a monster 3-point night for the superstar. Larry Robinson with 2 assists, a +3, constantly on the attack, a huge night for him. Carbonell and Chelios came up big with 2 assists themselves. Bobby Smith continues to shine with a goal and a helper. Joel Dallin finally steps up with a big goal and is a +3 on the evening. His best performance yet in this postseason after being very quiet. Ginger was also really good here. And wow, what more can you say? A 26 save night. The Habs are in a good place, but can they keep it up? Game 4. The electricity at the Forum is at a full high voltage. But the Habs are without Chris Nyland for the rest of the series and reactivate Serge Boisvert. The Habs come out, they're focused. But the Flames are also determined. But they can't seem to get to Wall much. But the times they do, he's right there to stop them. But the Habs defense, however, is breaking up any significant rushes the Flames can muster up as well. Robinson isn't taking his eye off the puck. Chelios is hitting anyone that even comes within breathing room of him. Also, the Calgary defense is making great plays too, and it's scoreless after 1. Both teams get a little stick happy, but not with goals. The second period, the Habs grinders and shutdown core might as well be shadows. Carbonell isn't letting Dan Quinn get anywhere. Neither is Skrudland. Gainey and Walter are playing smart checking games all over the star wingers such as Landy or Tonelli. And even Joe Mullen. Vernon is making big saves, however, and Waugh, well, the few times he gets targeted, is fierce and focused. And it's still scoreless after 2. Third period, it's much the same, but 11-10 in. A failed clearing attempt leads to the stick of Claude Lemieux, who launches it on Vernon. He scores! 1-0, the Habs are finally on the board. Waugh stays strong when he has to. The clock is winding down. Vernon is pulled. The Flames add pressure, and Waugh has to make a huge glove save on McInnes with 3 seconds to play. But on the next puck drop, the Habs clear it out on the next faceoff and win it 1-0. Wow, and a 3-1 series lead, just 1 win away from regaining the top of the mountain. Claude Lemieux, who has been relatively quiet early on in this series, scores his 4th game-winning goal of these playoffs and his 10th overall goal. Once again, coming up big at the biggest of moments. Waugh gets his first career playoff shutout, making 15 saves. All the defensemen here, Robinson, Chelios, Gindra, Green, Ludwig, Lawler, all amazing. Carbonell, Gainey, Skrudland, McPhee, and Walter were all in heavy shutdown mode on this one. And also should point this out, after the final buzzer, both teams began to brawl, and it did result in a fisticuffs matchup between Lemieux and Poplinski. Lawler, I think, had Tonelli in a front facelock, then just a huddled scuffle where players who never dropped their gloves were ready to go. But clearly the Habs have the Flames flustered and angry, and they can pounce on that come the next game as we shift to Calgary. And indeed, Game 5 back at the Saddle Dome, May 24th, 1986. The Habs need to make sure not to get ahead of themselves. Win the ring before you wear it. The Flames have to keep their cool. Dallin is out, however, for this game. Steve Rooney is reactivated. Patrick Waugh has the look of a man who feels no pressure whatsoever, but he knows full well what's at stake and is ready to go for it. And we are underway for this 5th game. And after Lanny McDonald is called for hooking, the Habs go, on the power play. And at least 7 minutes into the game, Naslund is trying to keep the puck in. It gets to Lemieux, who was out front for Gaston Gindra. And yes, indeed, the Habs draw first blood. It's 1-0. Montreal are being very smart and playing a strategic game, but the Flames are determined. They put pressure on Waugh, but as he has done in these playoffs, he's facing this pressure head-on without fear and stopping whatever's in his path. Things look to be getting tense again, however, as an incident between Riseborough and Skrudland escalates, but the waters calm, and the Habs take that 1-0 lead into the first intermission. In the second period, the Habs penalty kill unit has to be on their game as they're forced to kill 2 extra man advantage and do so expertly. But Calgary has now been given momentum, and it pays off as they tie the game. But 3:32 later, that gritty line is ready to strike. Lemieux fights the puck behind the net. Out front to McPhee. Hits the post, but to Skrudland, he scores! 2-1 lead. Silencing the ruckus Saddledome crowd. The Habs try to build on their lead, but Vernon refocuses his game. The crowd roars every time the Flames power in on Waugh, but the rookie is weaving his magic once again. And the game is very tight on both ends. Both teams are playing very disciplined hockey, but Montreal has a lead. 2-1 after 2. 20 more minutes. Can they hang on to this really small gap? Third period, however, the Habs stick to their strategy, but Waugh must stay focused And he is. You can almost hear that nail biting in every bar in the greater Montreal area. Can their boys hang on? Well, 10-11 into the third. Lawler fights with the puck along the boards. It gets near Melee and it gets up on the stick of Rick Green. Yes! Rick Green scores! Rick Green, his first goal in these playoffs. His first playoff goal in 2 years. One of the very few he'd ever score in his career. He doesn't score many, but when he does, he damn well makes it count, and it means a lot. Montreal now leads 3-1. Then 19 seconds later, a failed clearing attempt by McInnes leads to Naslund with a puck on the far side of the net. He sets it up perfect in front for Bobby Smith. His sixth goal in these playoffs. 4-1 Habs. 9:30 to play. All they have to do is protect their lead and hang on. But this Flames team, as they've shown throughout these playoffs, are not quitters, and no, they're not just going to give up. They pile even more pressure on Waugh, and they are not going out without a fight. But if it's up to them, the Flames that is, they will come back. But 3:14 to play, Bozak gets his second goal of the game. The lead is cut to 4-2. There's still seconds ticking away on that clock. The Habs need to keep the Flames extinguished. And indeed, they are back to zeroing in on their defensive game, but Calgary is still getting lots of chances. But then the announcer sounds off, 1 minute to play, 1 minute. Oh, wait! Stop the presses! Mullen cuts the gap to 4-3 with 46 seconds left. What is going on here? This can't be happening. The Flames are pressing. 30 seconds to play. 30 seconds. Habs get a chance to put it away, but they can't. And the Flames, again, they press on the attack. Waugh tries to clear it out. No, he can't. Shot from the point. Stunned. Bozak has a chance. Waugh stops it again. What a save. 14 seconds left on the clock. My goodness. Oh, even my heart's pounding through my chest and I know what happens. Oh, boy. The Habs win a key draw, but it stays in their zone. 10 seconds left. The Flames nearly get a chance at center, but the Habs clear it out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. The Montreal Canadiens, 1986 Stanley Cup champions. They hang on to win in thrilling fashion 4-3, taking the championship 4-1 in 5 games. The Flames refuse to make it easy, but once again, facing a worthy opponent brought out the desire of this young upstart club. And now a 23rd Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the historic and famed Montreal Forum. Let the joyous mobbing of rookie goalie and hero Patrick Waugh begin. Ah, yes, another superstar performance from the rookie goaltender. 30 saves. It got really difficult near the end, but he still came up in a clutch when push came to shove. And that Flames final rush with that huge stop with 14 seconds of play. And he came to win it, and he won it all. Naslund, what another huge performance from the superstar with 2 helpers on this night. Claude Lemieux also get the 2 apples, as he had his best game of this series. Extraordinary playoff run culminates in the ultimate success. An epic win in storytelling Hollywood fashion. The Lions in winter are now roaring loud and proud on top of the mountain where they return to for the first time in 7 years. And indeed, Naslund truly did save his best for last. His performance in these finals was the best that we'd seen him in this postseason. This is the superstar he had been all year. 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points, and a +2. A huge game, the pivotal Game 3, where the Habs put the pedal to the metal and never really let up after. And his performance in the cup-clinching game showed how bad he wanted to be a winner. And now, he is. And at last, to be able to be a star without scrutiny. Bobby Smith was also really good here and coming in tied for second team scoring with 2 goals, 2 assists for 4 points, and even 0. He was tremendous defensively as well and doesn't get enough credit there. And he gets to be the man who can say he scored the Stanley Cup game winner. Tied for second with him is Chris Chelios, who played his best playoff hockey yet. Not only a goal and 3 assists for 4 points, but his physical prowess was key in countering Calgary's all-around toughness and keeping his team on their toes and not letting them get pushed around. Guy Carbonneau was no nonsense in this series, playing with heart and uncanny determination. Clutcher Claude Lemieux started out quiet, and then he roared at the top of his lungs with his stick on the puck. That huge game winner, of course, one of many he's got in these playoffs, and that 1-0 Game 4 win to put the Habs on the brink of a victory. And that gave the Habs the driver's seat fully, and his performance in the cup clincher shows that he's a man that you want on your team in playoff pressure cookers. And Dave Maley, well, he was a bit of a surprise, actually really delivering, making the most of his big chances on the ice that perhaps that he didn't know he was going to get. Ryan Walter, who returned to these finals, stuck mainly to a defensive game and was especially a difference maker in Game 4 and played well for the most part. Brian Skrudland, what more can you say? Guy makes history with that 9-second overtime goal winner and still plays with such great ferocity. Mike McPhee does not get enough credit for his work with Skrudland and Lemieux as well. He was excellent in this final. Dallin still had struggles, but scored that key goal in Game 3. Nyland got nasty when he had to, so did Kordic. The minor league call-ups filled their roles quite nicely, but hey, last and most certainly not least, Captain Bob Gainey provided the leadership that his club sorely needed and played well to boot. His forward core was together in every way. And indeed, now you know that Chris Chelios, of course, led all defensemen in Cup final scoring with those 4 points. But honestly, goodness, he was actually the best defenseman in this final series. Again, showing that he has adapted to the pressures of playoff hockey and what it entails. He was a killer from the point and downright jarring with his physical presence, and basically told Calgary, hey, you're not going to push us around. He also tied the team with a team leading +4 in the finals, and sharing that with him was Mike McPhee. And again, this hungry role player excelled in the Stanley Cup final, his first, playing his heart out and being rewarded now with being a champion and getting his name on that barrel. As for the rest of the defense, well, the living legend, Larry Robinson, he came up big on several occasions, especially in both home games, 3 and 4, and a great effort in the clinching game. Gaston Gindra, as he has done all year, proves to be a surprise at certain moments, and he was excellent in these finals, playing his best hockey that he has all season after being called up. Rick Green struggled early in the series, but the goal in Game 5 is truly a moment he'll forever, I should say, easy for me to say, hold on to. The Hauler hit some speed bumps, but ultimately came through for his team, and Craig Ludwig perhaps played the best and most aggressive hockey that he has in his entire career. The defensive core was all about a never-quit and aggressive attitude. And the young leading man of the cinematic story of these Stanley Cup playoffs, rookie goaltender Patrick Roy. His story couldn't have a better ending. A 4-1 record, a 2.41 goals against average. That's against the second best scoring team in the league, so that's add context to that. He had a tremendous .903 save percentage, and his first ever playoff shutout coming in Game 4, and making that huge save with 3 seconds to play in that very game. But it was his heroics in Game 5, the cup clinching game, that was the big story here, where even as Calgary began to come back, he got it together and refused to allow the Flames to get the equalizer, and again making that big set of stops with 14 seconds to play. And now because of that, he is a champion. Indeed, the sweet taste of victory is something the Habs in their history, so as the likes of Captain Bob Gainey and alternate Captain Larry Robinson, have experienced. And the Habs were expected to win many of the cups they have won in the majority of their history. But how sweet it is to be a winner when nobody expected you to be. For Gainey, despite all he accomplished, faced more pressure than ever being the captain of this franchise. And now, 7 years and 3 days after that infamous photo of him hoisting the cup on the shoulders of his teammates, he at long last, as captain, gets to lead the celebration with cup number 5. And for Larry Robinson, winning those cups in Montreal when he was a young gun, but now, Stanley Cup number 6, he's a seasoned veteran, able to guide the many young players on this team, especially on his defense, and teach them how to win. And also became a winner once again himself. And the hero of the story, Patrick Roy. By a matter of circumstance, he became a top goalie in his rookie year, and despite good numbers, his consistency and reliability were called into question on several occasions. There were only brief moments where he buckled and wavered in these playoffs, but thriving in the face of adversity and against all odds, this 20-year-old lifts the world over his head with that Stanley Cup as he was cast into the improbable role as a hero, went above, beyond, and further. Once again, drawing comparisons to Ken Dryden's heroics in 1971. Can we be the first goalie since Dryden, rookie goalie that is, to win a cup? The look on Claude Lemieux's face in this picture says it all. Joy, jubilation, true glory. That he might not even expect to have this year. His clutch heroics and surprising play in these playoffs led to this moment. Since being drafted in 1983, he has fought to make the main roster, but was deemed always not ready. And this year, he was deemed not ready once again, despite some call-ups. But he was given a chance to shine due to the void left behind in injuries. He was finally given the chance to see what he was made of, and perhaps made it count beyond his wildest dreams. Let's just say, well, he won himself on that spot on the main roster by becoming a champion. It's not easy being a superstar in Montreal, and there were times Matt Naslund had to learn that the hard way, but he never let it defeat him. His career season led to the biggest moment of his career. He didn't succumb to the pressure, and he starred like he was expected to. And he wasn't because of the media. It was because of the winning desire he always had in him.
Bobby Smith for years had that winning desire. After coming so close with Minnesota back in 1981, and there many great years there, he too faced the pressure head-on that the uniform brings. It took a while for him to establish just what distinguishing clear-cut role he'd play for the Habs, but he found out this year, and is now rewarded with his name immortalized on the big prize. Guy Carbonneau's hard work ethic, growing leadership, and desire to win is a big reason the Habs made it this far, and many believe in hindsight this was the true passing of the torch, as Gainey, who had been the ice service workhorse and two-way warrior for many years now, was at the beginning of the end of his career. And this is where Carbonneau really emerged in that role. And while the legend of St. Patrick was definitely born in these playoffs, so too was the legend of Chelly, Chris Chelios. Sure, unlike Waugh, he'd already had a great rookie year, and even had a deep playoff run in a late-season call-up where he really thrived and won his spot on the main roster. Despite missing half of the regular season this year, Chelios' game excelled in these playoffs and molded into what we would see from him for the next 20-some years. His path to iconic status may have already begun, but it was paid miles ahead even more so this year. And what about the rest of this bunch? Chris Nyland, despite being decked out in his suit, stood proud with his teammates celebrating the Stanley Cup victory, which he was a big part of. It'd be the first and only time in his popular career he'd win it. Ryan Walter and Rick Green, part of that controversial trade of the Caps? Sure, we can all say the Caps won the trade. They did become contenders and emerged as an excellent team after that deal. But no player in a Caps uniform would actually see their name on a Stanley Cup for another 32 years after this. Walter and Green now have their names etched and rings on their fingers. Gaston Gindra only played 168 games after this in his career, but this moment can never be taken away from a man who worked so hard to get it. And Gilles Dallin, well, he only played 89 NHL games after this before going back to his homeland. He may have been a one-year wonder, but that year indeed ended with him collecting a Stanley Cup ring. Well, Craig Ludwig's reputation as a playoff guy going forward was due to this big win. Mike McPhee, who himself had to wait so long for this chance, helped make it happen. Years in the minors and finally getting the call-up the year before, he truly excelled in his game. Mario Tremblay, despite wanting to be there with his team, cheered with joy as he watched from the French-speaking broadcast booth where he began his new career as a broadcaster, can now collect his fifth and final ring. Brian Skrudland, last year this undrafted rookie, was simply happy to be the Calder Cup champion and playoff MVP of the AHL. And his grittiness and history-making moment made him beloved forever in Habs Nation. And hey, Mike Lawler, pretty much the same thing. He made the most of his chances and birthed an NHL career of nearly 700 games because he worked hard to make this happen. John Kordic, who saw more action than most thought, got his Stanley Cup. And while his career may have come to and his life may have come to a tragic end, let's hope that he cherished this moment. Dave Maley, Steve Rooney, Serge Boisvert can all say they got to be a part of something special. And while some feel it may be bittersweet for the likes of Peter Svoboda, Stéphane Richer, Tom Curvers, Lucien Deblois, Doug Sodart, and Sergio Momesso, they too can at least say they're a part of this extraordinary story. And lastly, the two men who were shrouded in uncertainty when they took their jobs. First, General Manager Serge Savard. I mean, sure, he won plenty of Stanley Cups as a player, but he had to take over with very little experience, but understood everything about the game inside and out, and spent time learning from the man who signed him, that's General Manager legendary Sam Pollock, and of course as well as his former teammate, John Ferguson, who was the GM of the Winnipeg Jets at the end of Serge's career. And he listened to the right people, and got a disorganized management team as well as scouts and coaches and players all on the same page for the first time in years. He truly showed he was made of it in the 1984 draft above anything, and led the reins of this team for another 9 years after this cup win, garnering another in 93. And for Jean Perron, not everybody's cup of tea, but everyone drank from the Stanley Cup because of him. A rookie coach, another rare feat winning the cup. It did take him a while to forge an identity with his team's strategy this season, and some of his decisions were pretty scatterbrained. However, some of his decisions, while risky, paid off in dividends. But Perron's methods and continued strained relationships with players, as well as his lack of overall communication, would be his undoing. Despite the fact that he would lead the Habs to an improved 92 points in the next season in a conference final appearance, and also being an assistant in the 87 Canada Cup for Team Canada, and won the regular season division title in his third season with the Habs with 103 points in 87-88, not to mention being a finalist for the Jack Adams Trophy for Coach of the Year. However, he was scapegoated by the organization for their second round exit at the hands of the Bruins. His methods were just a matter of wrong timing. He coached 1 year for an awful Nordique squad in 1988-89 and never worked in the NHL again. He spent the rest of his career coaching pro hockey in Israel. Despite his storied and controversial exit from Montreal, and despite what even some Habs fans might say, This cannot be taken away from him and what he did to make it happen. But now, we wrap up the story with the final numbers. Mats Naslund, of course, led the Habs in scoring these playoffs with 8 goals, 11 assists for 19 points in 20 games and was a -1. He played well for most of the postseason, despite taking a bit of a flack for his play in some games, and not showing consistent dominance like he did in the regular season. But the Habs had a strategy that they needed to stick to because it was successful, and so did Naslund. He was a big part of that. But he really did excel in a huge way in the Cup final itself, where he played at his best. Second in scoring was the huge surprise, the clutch hero, Claude Lemieux, who led the Habs in goals with 10, added 6 assists for 16 points, and was a +1. He ran the type of clutch play that many teams would seek during a playoff run. Any given team would seek during a playoff run. That, along with his pesky, nasty antics, and approached the opposition. He built a whole career on it, pretty much, and his reputation, and could finally call himself a full-time NHL player after this. He was also key with 4 power play goals. Coming in third was Bobby Smith, 7 goals, 8 assists, 15 points, a -2. Outside of a rough outing in the division final win over Hartford, he was a model of consistency in these playoffs, especially in the finals. And his two-way play gave the Habs a major edge in many key moments. Of course, speaking of two-way play, Guy Carbonneau. What a playoff he had. Not only being key in shutting down top fours, but came alive with 3 different 2-goal games, as his overall play in the Hartford series was a difference maker. His defensive presence was tailor-made for playoff hockey, and he showed it in a big way. Then, of course, there's the other shutdown center, Brian Skrudlin. While he's best remembered for his historic quick record-setting OT goal, and as well he should be, but his overall work on the grind, and not willing to be intimidated by bigger and even more experienced players, showed he has what it takes to succeed in the NHL, and he would. Mike McPhee, though, deserves a lot more credit than he's ever gotten for this play in this postseason. Again, a tough-minded and physical grinder on the line with Skrudlin and Lemieux. He also showed tremendous hustle, and also deserves credit for his work on the clutch. Here we go. You might not have even noticed this. He assisted on all 3 Habs overtime game winners in these playoffs. Then, of course, Captain Bob Gainey. Well, he again used those same skills that won him prior cups. It was his leadership that was more key than anything this year in these playoffs, along with those skills. Gel Dolan struggled greatly, but still scored some key goals, especially in Game 3 of the finals. Stefan Richer had a couple of good goals, but before exiting the finals after Game 1. Ryan Walter's return definitely helped the Habs' shutdown strategy even more so. Nasty Nyland, Chris Nyland, of course, hit him and hurt him, while rookie John Kordic did the same. Dave Maley played really well in the finals, while Deblois struggled a bit. But either way, a solid ship this Habs forward core was sailing. Naslund was tied for third in playoff scoring with his 19 points. He shared the spot with Gretzky, as well as Flame stars Joe Mullen and Al McInnes. He was the only Habs player to reach the top 10. And of course, Claude Lemieux's 4-game winning goals led the playoffs, which of course included those 2 historic overtime winners and that big lone goal in Game 4 of the finals. Guy Carbonneau, of course, as I mentioned, truly gave the Habs on these playoffs, and he led the team with a +9 throughout and played all 20 games. I also mentioned his overall play in the Hartford series was what stood out about his performance throughout this postseason. And indeed, he looks ready to take on the mantle going forward as a leading defensive two-way specialist for this club. Speaking of defense, Larry Robinson led all Habs Blue Liners in scoring with 13 assists for 13 points, and was again doing what he had done during his glory years, and since, and that's lead attacks from the zone, set up from the point, and of course laying out some nasty body checks, but very clean of course. Chris Chelios, however, didn't care if his checks were clean or not, but once again deserves praise for his role in these playoffs, as he grew more and more intense and more aggressive as the postseason progressed, and by the finals he was owning his game. Mike Lawler had to be the biggest surprise of these playoffs, however, amongst the defensemen, as the rookie gave the Habs that much added toughness and presence throughout and played excellently in the conference final especially. Gaston Gindra had some struggles when he suited out, but brought his best A game in the finals. Rick Green produced in many ways for the Habs, despite missing some action, and Craig Ludwig was able to thrive in this environment and again stayed his best hockey for these playoffs, making it known he was a very underrated blue liner. Sadly, however, Peter Svoboda's game did seem to freeze in these playoffs, but be that as it may, a lot of unexpected performers and performances. Well, Larry Robinson's 13 points, again all assists for third amongst defensemen in these playoffs in scoring, and only behind Reinhart and McInnes the Flames at second and first respectively. Chris Chelios was actually tied for fourth with 11 points, 2 goals and 9 assists, a three-way tie with Caps superstar Scott Stevens and Blues blue liner Rob Ramage. Robinson was also tied for third most assists in these playoffs with his 13, with Paul Reinhart of the Flames, and only one behind Blues icon Bernie Federko in second, and McInnes is first with 15. And now to plus minus. Carbonell's plus 9 was tied for 5th best these playoffs, along with Rick Meagher of the Blues and former Hab Doug Riseborough of the Flames. Brian Skrudland was tied for 8th with a plus 8, and along with McCowan of the Flames, Mark Reeves of the Blues, Bob Brook of the Rangers, and Stevens on the Caps. Once again, just showing how much this underappreciated rookie contributed. And St. Patrick Waugh played every single second of these playoffs for the Habs. Despite skepticism from the media and the public, and you kind of play devil's advocate, you can see why. If he finished 15-5, a monster 1.93 goals against average, a massive 923 save percentage, and a shutout. He went into a situation that didn't have much probability of succeeding, a rookie goal in the playoffs, but he was truly a gladiator out there and fearless, and always his own biggest critic more than anyone else, pushing himself to be better when things got rough at certain moments. He played like a man who knew the playoffs like the back of his glove and never lost focus. Waugh's 1.93 goals against average was 3rd best, just a mere 200ths behind Mike Leader of the Whalers, as Edmonton's Andy Moog led with 1 on the dot but only played 1 game. Waugh's 923 save percentage was 2nd to Liu for best in these playoffs. Waugh was also one of 4 goaltenders in the playoffs to record a shutout. So now the question remains, who wins the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP? I mean, Claude Lemieux would have to be considered due to his clutch heroics. Who am I kidding? We all know where this is going. I mean, Lemieux granted likely got some votes, but come on. Anyway, just for the heck of it, hit that drum roll. Was there ever any doubt, even for those who are new to the history of this club? At this point, you had to know it. St. Patrick Waugh, the 1986 Conn Smythe Trophy winner, as playoff MVP. When I said a legend was born, I wasn't kidding, as this would be the first of what still, as the 2025 is, a record of 3 Conn Smythe Trophy wins as playoff MVP, and again, the first rookie goalie since Ken Dryden to win the award. Well, Bob Gainey, the man who led this team as captain, would, like former teammate Savard, move up to the GM's box, but did so in Dallas, however, for the Stars. Mind you, that was in 1992 when they were still in Minnesota. And he began to build a winning club for this long-suffering franchise that culminated with a Stanley Cup win in 1999. And in his time managing the club, to help make this team a winner, he acquired 4 of his former Habs teammates, but 3 of them were on this Stanley Cup 1986 team. Craig Ludwig joined the club in 1991, as then GM Bob Clark, at the behest of Gainey, who was coaching at the time, picked him up after a 1-year stint with the Islanders after leaving Montreal. As GM, however, he obtained Carbonell, who had a 1-year stay in St. Louis after leaving Montreal in 1994. And then Brian Skrudland came in from the Panthers in the 1997-98 season, as Skrudland left the Habs in midway through the 92-93 season. And hey, they all still had a lot to offer. Now, we've seen this in the past, but it's tricky where a GM or coach goes with what's familiar, as they become overindulgent and too reliant on it, but Gainey knew it was all for depth, as that was the type of player he was. That these guys who can make a difference in certain situations, and it proved to be right. For Ludwig, it was his 3rd Cup appearance and 2nd win, and he'd retire right after. For Carbonell, it was his 3rd Stanley Cup win, as he captained a 93 Habs team that won it, and in 2000, still with the Stars, he played in his 5th Cup final of his career, retiring shortly thereafter. Skrudland, like Ludwig, collected his 2nd ring in 1999 and was his 4th finals appearance. He played in the 99-2000 season, but injuries prevented him from playing in the playoffs, and he would retire shortly after. Out of this 86 Habs club, despite the unlikely story, there's 5 future Hall of Famers here, 2 of whom we already know were headed there, even with how well they've played. The others, nobody would have guessed. Well, Captain Bob Gainey was inducted in 1992, his first year of eligibility after retiring from the NHL in 1989. Larry Robinson was in his first year of eligibility in 1995 after a 3-year stint with the Kings, where he retired in 1992. Patrick Waugh, who from his glorious rookie campaign would retire after 18 seasons, finishing his career, of course, with the Colorado Avalanche, and was inducted on his first year of eligibility in 2006, totaling 4 Stanley Cups, 3 Conn Smythe trophies, 3 Vezina trophies, and at the time retired as the NHL's all-time wins leader. Then Chris Chelios, who last played his professional game in 2010 at the age of 48, was inducted in 2013, also his first year, taking within 3 Stanley Cups, 3 Norris trophies as the top defenseman, and a 5-time first-team All-Star. And lastly, Guy Carbonell, who was finally rewarded after 16 seasons of eligibility in 2019 with an induction. 3 Stanley Cups, 3 Selke trophies. That's like Gainey, he didn't rack up points like the top lines did, but the Hall of Famer knows how to score and when to do it. And hey, players like him do make all the difference. Also, Gainey, Robinson, Chelios, and Waugh in 2017 were named to the list of the NHL's top 100 players of all time in the 100th anniversary of the league's inception. Gainey, Robinson, and Waugh have also had their numbers retired by the Montreal Canadiens. Chelios, while winning a Norris Trophy with the Habs in '89 and playing with them until 1990, had his number retired by the Chicago Blackhawks, where he played 9 seasons and had some of the best years of his career. And there's, of course, that list of players you can make an argument for. Obviously, with international accolades also being awarded in the Hall of Fame in the past, one would argue that Mats Naslin's combined NHL accomplishments as well as international savvy should see him enshrined. He left the NHL, however, in 1990 after 8 seasons, all with Montreal, and he was an elite forward on a team that was very defensive-minded, but he did win the Lady Byng Trophy in '88, played in 3 NHL All-Star games, back when that meant something, and slipped it for a 4th. But with the Habs, he had 612 points in 617 games. Excellent. And 91 points in 97 playoff games. Tack that onto his international career, which before 1990, he had a silver and a bronze in a World Championship and played in a couple others, and a finalist of the 1984 Canada Cup, as well as an Olympic bronze in 1980. He played very well in all those tournaments to boot. Then after leaving the NHL, he led to HC Lugano in Switzerland to the finals, and were Spengler Cup finalists as well, and then they led Malmo IF in Sweden to 2 Swedish League titles and a European Championship. He helped lead Team Sweden to a World Championship gold in 1991, played in another Canada Cup, was their best player arguably at the 92 Olympics despite no medal, and led him to a gold in 1994 where he played excellently. He returned to the NHL in the brief stint in 1995 with the Bruins for 34 games, and played well actually before retiring for pro hockey for good. I think combining all these, Naslund is a great case of the Hall, but many feel since he wasn't as dominant as many of his peers in the NHL's high-scoring era that he will never get in. And then there's Bobby Smith, who I talked about in my video covering the 1991 Minnesota North Stars. Smith was a very good player. He had a very good career. He played 15 NHL seasons, retiring in 1993, with 1,036 points in 1,077 games and 160 points in 184 playoff games. He had 4 Cup final appearances, including the only ring he'd win here in '86. But I emphasized very good. Yes, he was. Just that. He's in the Hall of very good, I would say. But that's as high as the ceiling went, and that's not a knock. Some feel, however, the way the era he played in was dominated by so many that other players deserve a second look, and he's despite his lack of personal accolades, some feel his two-way play is overlooked, and I can see that argument, and not given enough flowers. And then you have Claude Lemieux. Yes, a lot of people have argued for Claude Lemieux for the Hall of Fame. If you're talking playoffs and just playoffs, well, I mean, okay, for sure. He won a total of 4 Stanley Cups and continued his rep of being a clutch player, so much so that he was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP in 1995 with the Devils. He had a fantastic NHL career, scoring 379 goals and playing in 1,215 games, and he actually may very well be the best playoff performance of all time. But his regular season resume reads as simply, again, very good. Again, like Smith, but not great. And again, that's not a knock. I can honestly see NASA maybe getting a second look in the future, but I don't see it anytime soon, and I doubt it at all for Smith or Lemieux. And that brings us to a close for our look at the 85-86 Montreal Canadiens, the unlikely story of a winner from a franchise whose history has always been the expected lead story for much of their success. But what other teams would you like to see us cover? Leave a suggestion in the comments, like and share the video, and please subscribe to the channel. Until next time, I'll see ya.